2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because, as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I want to say welcome back. I mean, actually just welcome, because we've only just started. 3 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham. We're with you all the way through, of course, until 10 every single weekday morning. It is Monday. It's a brand new day. We've got lots and lots of things going on this morning. Stories ranging from Paul Gascoigne rushed to hospital on the front page of The Sun. The state pension could be rising to 68 for those of you looking forward to picking it up in the next couple of years. That's in the I newspaper. Downing Street are looking like they're going to retreat because of American influence over the Apple story. You know how Keir Starmer and his grasping hands of, coming after everybody's privacy wanted to get into Apple's encryption codes. Well, apparently the Home Office are now going to be told by the White House, back off, guys, otherwise there's going to be a problem with the trade deal. So, of course, they're not going to be doing it. Also, we're going to be talking about the doctor's strike, because Friday is the day when the first doctor's strike is due to happen. And, of course, these guys are gearing up. They've got a huge war chest to fund the doctor's strike, according to the Daily Mail. It also says in the Daily Mail, over the past 8 years, doctors have had a 91% pay rise. No wonder they're going on strike. They're probably saying we should have had 100. Absolutely ridiculous. Big story for Nigel Farage. He's all over the papers today, in every single one, talking about prison reform. He wants to send really, really nasty, horrible paedophiles and ghastly sex criminals away from this country. He wants to send them to places like El Salvador. Well, they won't like it at all, I can tell you that. He also wants to send all sorts of other criminals out of jail into other countries. And it seems like a pretty good idea. He also says violent criminals and sex offenders will not get early release anymore under a Nigel Farage reform government. And he wants to build more jails to clean up the streets, wants to make room for another 30,000 people. Incredible stuff. We've got loads to talk about as well. Believe it or not, Dale Vince, our man in the chair at Forest Green Rovers, the ecotricity head, he's apparently offering up visits to his football ground as cures for depression. for football fans. If you've never seen a football match, apparently it might cheer you up. Well, not if you watch Forest Green Rovers, it won't, because you can't even get a decent hamburger there. It's all vegan food. How are you going to send people who've got depression there? They're going to come back feeling even worse. 0344 499 1000 is the number. A couple of stories about GB Energy and our good friend Jürgen. We'll see what he's been up to. And the migrants. We've got a migrant of the day. He can't be sent home because nobody knows where he's from. He's claimed that he's Iranian, and he's also claimed he's Afghan. And he's also claimed, I think, at one point he's Pakistani. So, you know, what the hell are we doing with these people? 0344 499 1000. Emma Wolf is here as well. Very good morning to you, Emma. We've got lots going on. It's 6:05. Let's get it on. I met some very nice people over the weekend who listen to the show, watch the show every day, and they said, I don't know how you've got so much energy in the morning. But, you know, it's like once you're up, aren't you?
I was at a dinner party and people were going, and they asked me questions, how does he go for 4 hours? And I said, honestly, I don't know. I've got all my props. I've got my sort of coffee to keep me up. You've got a glass of water, and sometimes a banana.
I've got a banana, yeah.
I don't know how, actually.
Yeah, well, you know...
I don't want to suggest anything illegal, but, you know, you do have amazing energy at this time.
Napping is the key, I think.
Napping, OK.
I'll go home for a nap when I finish.
Oh,
anyway, where do you want to start? There's a lot of different stories here.
Nigel
Farage is all over the papers, so let's start with him.
Well, he's very much positioning Reform as the party of law and order.
Yeah.
And everything. I don't think...
Which is a good idea.
I don't think, quite a good idea, especially in this crime-ridden country.
Yes.
Is there anybody who can disagree with the things that he is saying about not releasing violent criminals, sex offenders early?
Yes.
Sending violent offenders either back home or to somewhere really, really grim, as you say, like an El Salvador prison.
Yeah.
He's even taking a little jab at them. Do you remember the Nightingale hospitals? Those pointless hospitals during the COVID hysteria, which basically remained empty? Well, he's talking about building new prisons, prefab prisons. Yeah. 30,000 new places.
I don't see why not. I mean, we've been talking about this for such a long time.
Could we use the hospitals and use them as prisons?
I mean, when I started working in radio back in sort of 2007 or something like that, we didn't have enough prison places. Yeah. We had a problem with the justice system then. And I used to do shows and say, why don't we just get prisoners going to prison and building a new prison while they're there? Yeah. You know, these kinds of ideas.
They could be doing something.
Yeah, these kinds of ideas.
Like in America, where they work on the roads.
Yeah. Well, why couldn't we have them on stationary bikes generating electricity? There's plenty of stuff we could be doing. Instead, what we let them do is they go into prison, they become members of gangs, they take drugs, they apparently have sex with the warders. I mean, the whole thing is off the scale.
Some of them have been filming sex videos for OnlyFans websites to make money on the side. I mean, Incredible. It really is unbelievable.
And I don't know who decided that it was a great idea to let women be prison guards in men's prisons. I mean, seriously? Very strange idea. And apparently, I've also been reading that an awful lot of these gangs, because of the fact that they like to get, you know, illegal, you know, stuff in contraband into the prison, a lot of people are applying for jobs as prison officers who are already bent, who are already going to help the guys inside to get their drugs and to get their, you know, whatever, cigarettes, whatever they want. It's insane. So a big spread in The Sun today, pages 8 and 9. Twisted criminals like child killer Ian Huntley would be sent to jails in El Salvador to serve their sentences under a reform UK government. I think people will like this stuff.
I absolutely do. I think it's, you know, it's obviously, it obviously makes sense, but also this is very, very much Nigel Farage's territory. This is very much reform territory. And, you know, he's going to have this kind of 6-week offensive on law and order. He wants to also recruit new police officers, end prison overcrowding. But as you say, Mike, why do these guys, they're in prison for committing sometimes horrendous crimes. Yeah. They've got free Wi-Fi, they're sitting around, they go to the gym. Yeah. How on earth is that a punishment?
I know.
I mean, for many of them, it's easier than being on the outside.
Because the trouble is, we've got this sort of group of people in this country, prison reformers, who think that, you know, prison doesn't work, and so therefore there's not much point in sending people to prison. But it works for the people who are the victims, it seems to me.
Or at least it gets them off the street. It doesn't work if you just bang them up, and then they get, you know, they get free, they get the drugs sort of helicoptered in, droned in, however it's happening, mobile phones, all of that. The system at the moment is not doing much except churning out even more, you know, kind of nefarious offenders. Right. Even people who go in with low-level crimes come out and they're sort of experts.
But most people don't even go anywhere near prison unless they've had some kind of horrendous record of 20, 30, sometimes maybe 40 different offences. Unless, of course, you're Lucy Connolly.
And then you're straight in. Exactly.
For one offence.
Well, you're right. The sentencing system, the court system is completely jammed up. Yeah. People spending years and years and years sort of waiting to be...
for a trial. You know, there are people currently waiting for trials probably a year or possibly 2 years in advance, which is no good
it's
for the system.
It's hardly a deterrent, is it?
No, it's hardly a deterrent. It's also no good for the victims who've got to wait until the trial date finally comes around. It's also not much good for the people who are suspected of committing crime, because it means they can't really get on with their lives either.
I'm assuming they can't work. I'm assuming they're on some kind of benefits. I mean, I don't actually know the position. If you're waiting to be sentenced, if you're waiting on a list.
I think in most people's case, if you've got a decent job and you get charged with a serious serious crime, I imagine they'll let you go, won't they? They wouldn't go, well, let's just see how it all goes in that murder trial of yours, you know.
Exactly.
You're going to go...
You mean they'll sack you?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so then you're presumably on the benefits system.
Presumably you're on benefits. But an interesting one in the Telegraph where it says nearly half of all convictions in England and Wales are being decided in secret by a single magistrate without the defendant even appearing in court.
Exactly.
No jury.
Well, it's a little bit like the Afghan cover-up. You do think, how much more of this? This is only the tip of the iceberg. How many more sort of secret sentencing, secret Starmer, hide it all, super injunction sort of stuff? Or do we not even hear about, or not even reported, not even... not even in public.
Very much. There was a good piece in the Sunday Times yesterday written by an American reporter who used to work over there, came here and was horrified at the kind of restrictions that were put upon her in terms of what information she could get. Because she was like, she said, I used to work, and I'm the same, having worked in America. You know, you could bring the police up or the FBI or anybody, and they'll just tell you whatever you want to know.
Yeah.
You know, and she was like, I came to Britain and nobody would tell me anything. She said, I couldn't even get the name. She was even compiling just a list of, you know, press office numbers for journalists. Couldn't even get the name of the press officer, because it was thought to be, you know, not something that anybody should know.
Well, I've noticed that increasingly in England, in this country, even if you're on the phone to a customer services person and you say, well, could I have a record of this? What's your name and can I have your surname? I'm not obliged to tell you my name. And you think, hang on a minute, you're the customer service agent or someone with a badge. They've got their rainbow flags and all of that, but they won't tell you their surname. So you can't have a record of the interaction.
But
it seems to be increasing, and especially with two-tier policing, you know.
I was on the phone once to one of these electricity companies, right, because I'd waited in for 4 hours for somebody to come and change my meter. It didn't turn up, right? So I'm on the phone going, what do you want me to... She's like, well, please stay until, you know, 4 o'clock. I said,
stay another 4 hours.
No, because I have to... If they come at 4 o'clock, you know, the time is up, I've got to go out. And she ended up putting the phone down on me. Just put it down.
Absolutely outrageous.
Incredible, you know. And we eventually got it sorted. But, I mean, it was just insane. You're right. I mean, people in this country are reluctant to give information out to anyone.
The balance seemed to have shifted in that we're harassing them if we ring up and ask for, you know, a decent service for our money.
Well, everywhere you go, I was trying to book a restaurant.
Don't harass me. I'm going to, you know, report you.
I was trying to book a restaurant last night, and inside the kind of all the stuff about you agree to our terms and conditions, there was a big statement about, you know, we expect you to treat our staff properly.
I know.
We don't expect them to be sexually harassed. I'm like, I'm just trying to book dinner.
I know.
You know, I'm trying to sleep with anyone.
But I've noticed that also increasingly in the NHS. I've noticed when you go into a big hospital, you're visiting an elderly relative or something like that, all I see is posters saying, you treat our staff with respect. And I always walk around confused, thinking, when does it move from being about the patients? Because I thought the NHS was about treating patients. I thought it was about making people better. Now it's about, you treat our staff with respect. You respect their pronouns, you respect their gender choices and their flags and their ethnicity, and you stop this. And you think, hang on a minute, the NHS isn't...
Well, I mean, it was during COVID.
Of course you treat people with respect, but it was during COVID.
It was during COVID we discovered...
Well, we had to clap for them.
Well, we discovered, actually, they'd rather we didn't actually exist. They'd rather you didn't go to the hospital at all. You know, just don't... Hospitals without patients, far more efficient business.
Because A, they've got dancing and videos and TikToks to make. And B, stop stressing out the staff. Because, you know... everybody's dying every day, and it's an extremely stressful job. So don't come into the hospitals. Absolutely ridiculous.
Which brings us to the front page
you see the doctors.
The Daily Mail, BMA's war chest. Well, the thing I found amazing was this pay, 91% pay rise in 8 years.
Which is 41% in real terms. So they are now advertising, I can't even see the article, they are now advertising jobs. The average job, I think, for a doctor...
It was
£99,000, which is way above the national average. It's probably more than that now.
Up from 52,000 in January 2017, which represents
to £99,000. And that's the average doctors. And many are on more than that.
And that's before they do any extra work on the side, any private stuff.
The extra work, covering for striking colleagues, the locum staff. Oh, I know GPs who are doing things at home like checking blood tests, so you can check blood test results. You get hundreds and hundreds of pounds for doing that. Someone has to do all that stuff.
Someone has to do it.
There are many, many ways that they're boosting that salary.
Yeah, so according to the Mail, militant doctors have built up a £1 million war chest to bully ministers into giving them another huge pay rise. The British Medical Association boasted it's prepared for a long-term fight with Wes Streeting if he fails to prevent the crippling strikes happening. They're going to start on Friday, supposedly.
First wave of rolling strike. The BMA are literally running riot, aren't they? There was a Conservative spokesman saying Labour has bent over backwards for the unions with these no-strings-attached pay rises, and it's true, because now they can do what they want.
Right. Well, this is the trouble. I wrote a piece for the Telegraph over the weekend about how basically Starmer and his team are the worst negotiators in the history of negotiating. Because, they gave ASLEF train drivers 15%, made no concessions whatsoever. Same with the doctors, gave them 22%, didn't give them any...
Within weeks of coming into power.
Yeah.
Hi, unions.
So of course, they're now all coming back for more money.
Of course they are.
Because they know that they can get what they want.
They literally can get what they want. And the point about the 91% pay increase and the fact that it's 41% in real terms, they keep telling us we just want pay restoration back to, I don't know, 2008 levels.
But what if they weren't even doctors in 2008?
Well, they're probably at school. Most of them were at school.
We're talking a very long time ago, so quite a few of them won't have been working as doctors. So you should say, you can have your pay restoration back to your student grant.
Your pocket money, 50p a week.
No,
I mean, it is actually untrue, though, that they want that the pay hasn't kept pace with inflation and all of that. Because actually, when you look at the figures, it's not true. And, at the base of all this, at the fundamentals of all this, is that it's meant to be about treating patients. It's meant to be that you go into the healthcare because you're a doctor or a nurse, because you care about treating people. First, do no harm. All of that. And I think what we've seen over the past few months is that doctors are all about the money.
Yeah,
well, just be honest then. Just be honest and say, we just want to make loads of money. And
most of them actually won't vote to strike anyway. Most of them will not go on strike. A lot of them will, but an awful lot of them won't. It's absolutely ridiculous. By the way, apparently Nigel Farage and Reform UK holding a press conference this morning later on their plans to deal with crime. So it's sort of on the march. Nigel Farage was on some TV shows.
He was doing the rounds, wasn't he?
He was doing the rounds.
Flanked by there are some lovely pictures of him with his team. He's got such a funny security guard team.
He has. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Emma. Andy in Portsmouth. I'd just like to say on Nigel, hurrah! I think it's fantastic that he's going to build more prisons and send all these vile, scum, paedophile people to, let's just say, places where are less cushy where they are right now. I think it's brilliant, and I can't wait for them to get in. The sooner the better.
And do you remember those ICE videos that you saw from America when they send them all back to El Salvador and they get sort of dragged up the back of a lorry, chained up, completely manacled, feet and hands, and then they shave their heads, then they chuck them all in this horrific-looking prison with a load of guys with tattooed faces.
Well,
I don't think they'd enjoy it.
It's quite a deterrent.
It's great, yeah. You don't want to go there.
I mean, why are we keeping people in cushy... why are we paying for it all?
I know.
I mean, really, we can't pay for pensioners to live a decent life in retirement. Why on earth are we putting these guys up? And some of the sex crimes and the offences that we're now seeing coming up, and it is often linked with migrants at the moment, and they're all over the papers every day now, is really disturbing, not just the scenes in Epping.
Well, I wanted to get to that because we've got a mother concerned with the migrant hotel in Epping, which again saw some action last night. Yesterday, a lot of women turned out on the front line and just stood and said, look, this is a peaceful protest, we're not looking for trouble, and they did what they did. The police turned up and it was all sort of fine, but it starts to get a bit darker when night falls, obviously, because that tends to happen. And I was watching some videos last night of police, pushing people back and, lots of men shouting and, throwing things, lighting flares. So it's a problem. This is a mother concerned about what's going on there.
We felt a lot of the press were incorrectly reporting us on Friday morning after our protest on Thursday. And so we just wanted to make it really clear that we're strong women, we're mums, we're sisters, we're aunties, we're parents of the area. So we're just here to support. Everybody is really concerned about who is in that hotel. Crime in the area is shocking, and this is a beautiful place to live. And we are all very concerned, as are other people in other towns around the country. We need to stick together, peaceful protest, and the government need to listen to us. They need to listen to real people on the ground, people that work hard and love their country. And we're here to protect that. Our values are very important and we must protect them.
And the government is saying nothing about this, right? Almost as if they're sticking their hands in their ears and going, la, 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 don't want to hear it, don't want to hear it. You know, we've got migrants in hotels, we can't do anything about it. They can do something about it tomorrow.
That woman, she's literally just speaking the feelings of the community, of people who are mums, who are sisters, who are women who don't feel safe in an area where they have just started to put people in Asylum Hotel. And I've talked endlessly about the Thistle Hotel in Clerkenwell, where I live. Same thing. The women, older women, but schoolgirls in the area can't walk that way anymore. I mean, that's actually mentioned in one of the reports. The crime levels, the amount of offences, sex offences that have happened. And that's in the central London. And I think that woman was in Epping. In Essex. And again, she's not, you can't, and how could you brand her as like, I don't know, far right or racist or xenophobic or anything? Exactly. She's literally just saying we want safety, we want to have our country back.
There's another story here in The Sun, an exclusive, about some guy, they're calling him a sex bee, Zayed Alanzi, 26-year-old, stalked a woman when he was staying in an asylum hotel, tried to get her to come back to the asylum hotel with him, right? Grabbed her by the cheek, squeezed her face, kissed her on the mouth, forced his tongue inside her mouth. She wrestled him away. And she managed to report him to the police. He's now been locked up for a while. He was staying at the Royal Hotel in Hull, and he claims that the woman consented to the kiss.
And we discussed
He's a married man from Kuwait.
Absolutely disgusting. And do you remember that beautiful hotel in Hull that used to be, you know, the pride of Hull is now housing asylum seekers.
Yeah, it's
shocking. And for whatever reason, often the values and the expectations are very, very different, and it can be really, really frightening as a woman to be around all that stuff, and it's just not safe for these local areas.
No, if my daughter was having to walk past that
and finishing a shift late at night or whatever, exactly.
I would not be happy about that.
Would you be letting your children walk to school through that? Because it's just horrendous.
Absolutely not. Coming up, we'll play you the latest from Keir Starmer on the migration problem and what he's going to do. But when is he going to talk about these hotels? When is he? I thought they said months ago, did they not? They were moving them out of hotels. They don't seem to be. They all seem to be still in hotels. This is Morning Glory. Back after this.
Very much in control of what she's saying, and she delivered to an audience who entirely bought into everything that she was saying. She was a voice of reason. She is a voice who some lunatics in this Labour government would doubtlessly brandish as being some kind of far-right thug, when she is in fact just a very reasonable woman expressing her concerns about her local community, which is being tarnished.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Emma Wolf is here with me as well, 24 minutes past 6. We just mentioned the Labour government, I'm pretty sure at some point or other, mentioned that they were going to get rid of migrant hotels. They were going to end the whole thing, and they were going to take people out of those hotels and they were going to deport them and or put them somewhere else. Here's Rachel Reeves from June.
Billions of pounds of taxpayers' money spent on housing asylum seekers in hotels, leaving people in limbo and shunting the cost of failure onto local communities. We won't let that stand. So I can confirm today that, led by the work of my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, we will be ending the costly use of hotels to house asylum seekers in this Parliament. Funding that I have provided today, including from the Transformation Fund, will cut the asylum backlog, hear more appeal cases and return people who have no right to be here, saving the taxpayer £1 billion a year. That is my choice, Mr. Speaker. That is the Labour choice. That is the choice of the British people.
Well, since then, they haven't deported anyone. And they haven't closed any migrant hotels, have they?
Of course they haven't. And now I think
it's nearly August.
I think asylum hotels are secret, aren't they? You're not allowed to know, even though everybody does know.
Yeah.
Where do they go when they're... I mean, you don't you solve the court's backlog, you suddenly process hundreds of thousands of this backlog and you deport them.
Well, don't forget, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them coming every day.
Of course there are.
There's new people coming to new hotels.
I don't know how many came over the weekend. And what about the endless appeals?
Yeah.
What about the endless appeals? Every time you're turned down, you can appeal.
Yeah.
So how do you deport them?
Well, maybe Keir Starmer's got an idea of how to deport them. Let's see what he's had to say over the weekend.
This is a partnership with a purpose. I think it illustrates what our work on the international stage is all about, building the foundations of stability across our continent that make us safer, boost our economy and deliver change across for our people. It's about delivering results, and that's what we're working towards. In a dangerous world, we do this together. So thank you, Friedrich, for your partnership and your friendship.
You got a bit of Vangelis coming in there at the end. Chariots of fire.
Maybe they start vaulting up the stairs.
Him and old Frederick Mertz dancing through the waves. Can you imagine?
He loves that shot.
Up at St Andrews. Bring it on.
There was another one. Oh, it was when the migrants were jumping off the boats and you were saying we could have a bit of Chariots of Fire there as well.
That's right.
When they're splashing through the waves. Wait, he loves that shot.
He just keeps talking absolute cobblers.
Absolute nonsense.
Rubbish.
I thought he'd gone quiet for a day or two. I think his team, his terrible ex-tweeting team, I think they have a few days off at the weekend because it doesn't annoy me so much. But in the week, they start up with these tweets.
Well, we look at for his first live of the day around about 8 a.m. So just about after 8 o'clock is when the first one goes out.
But he loves that shot, Mike, where he gets a foreign leader, it doesn't matter who, German, someone that will annoy us, and they walk up the stairs at Downing Street, and then he'll say...
slow motion.
And then he'll say underneath it, we're building a stronger Britain or something, with a foreign leader who he's usually giving billions to anyway. You just think...
And the voice, you know, it's getting worse, because I saw, and we might have this later on, but Steve Reed was also doing the rounds, and he's now started talking like Starmer, you know, he's like using all the same kind of phrases.
Reeves talks like Starmer as well.
Well, yeah, it's becoming very robotic. Oh, we've got another, we're spoiling us this morning. We've got another second Keir Starmer offering. Here he is, also with Chancellor Merz.
We intend to maximise the benefits of our defence spending in the shape of more jobs, more growth and more security. The UK and Germany side by side, delivering growth and security and delivering for working people. Our economic links already support 500,000 British jobs. So under this treaty, we will go further with e-gate access for frequent business travellers. Crucially, we're also working together on illegal migration. And I want to thank Friedrich for his leadership on this, pledging decisive action to strengthen German law so that small boats being stored or transported in Germany can be seized, disrupting the route to the UK. And it's a clear sign that we mean business. We are coming after the criminal gangs in every way that we can.
Yeah, I'm sure they're quaking in their boots, the criminal gangs, now that, you know, if you run your dinghy through Germany, somebody might stop
Somebody
you
might seize it.
and seize
I mean,
it.
when he said e-gates for businesses coming through, I mean,
why
you
does
are
he even think that is an attraction?
worthy of mention in a kind of, you know, State of the Nation speech. I know, you just stand against the Union Jack and we'll do the music.
Yeah.
It's a pathetic.
Working
Nothing
together
makes
with
sense.
Germany.
Working together with Germany to deliver for the British people.
Yeah, doesn't mean anything.
You've literally got people coming over in dinghies.
Yeah.
And you're just coming out with this stuff. I really worry about this man's mental health.
I do, because he's clearly either trying to delude himself or he's trying to delude everybody else. You know, because he clearly is saying these words which mean nothing. They're all jumbled together in a sentence, but it's all about we intend to, you know, we will, you know, we pledge. Well, you know, it's not
It doesn't
we're actually doing anything.
Yeah, when you actually try to analyse a single sentence, how does it deliver for the British people who are dealing in their local area with unemployment, with businesses closing down, with asylum hotels, with the fact that they can't get a GP appointment? None of it connects.
No.
And as for, I mean, what about those questions? What about what you just said? Rachel Reeves saying we'll close those asylum hotels. That was in June.
Yeah. And meanwhile,
What's
not
happening?
one, as far as I'm aware, not one of them is closed. I mean, a lot of people think the Bell Hotel, which is the one in Epping Forest, might end up being closed down because it's such a flashpoint at the moment for all sorts of activities. But a lot of people also saying to me, it feels like the start of something. It feels like the start of a sort of people's rebellion against what has been ruining this country. You know, it will start somewhere, and if it has to start in Epping, then that's where it's going to start.
Indeed, but we've said this before about Starmer. This is the beginning. He can't survive this, and he does. And somehow they swerve it and they dodge it, and something else takes over. Another crisis happens. So I want to believe you. I want to agree with you. I thought they were closing this hotel in Clerkenwell, and they're not. They're not. There are still asylum seekers outside.
No, of course.
I mean, they did a high-profile raid on it, and then things go quiet, and the story moves on. So I think probably the Bell Hotel will stay open.
Yeah, we shall see. Let's talk about the front page of The Sun. They've got their own story this morning. Freers over Gaza dash to A&E. Friends were last night running around football hero Paul Gascoigne after he was rushed to hospital, semi-conscious, found a bedroom in his home at Poole in Dorset. He's in intensive care. We haven't heard yet. I think he's stable, as far as we know.
Yeah,
we haven't really
he's
had
been
an
moved
update.
to an acute medical unit.
But
I
you
mean,
know,
he's
it's such
battled,
a sad story, isn't it?
Yeah, he's clearly not well at all, and he's obviously battled many different addictions and things over the years. He's 58, and kind of one of those players that everybody loved. Everybody, you know, a real kind of proper British footballer. Yeah,
he was great,
really
but
sad.
you know, he's clearly not very well. We'll keep an eye on that one for you. Coming up, we're going to talk some more about migrants, because there's a great story that appeared on the Sunday Times over the weekend about double dipping migrants, basically coming into Britain, claiming asylum, and then going to Ireland and also claiming asylum. And apparently they caught they got one particular guy who was arrested trying to get back across the border, and it turns out he's been here for about a year claiming benefits in both countries.
Absolutely true.
Because you can claim, there's nothing to stop you claiming in more than one country, which is incredible, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
And apparently they've sent about 400 people back to Britain from Ireland as a result of doing this. So never mind all these people we're supposed to be deporting, we're actually getting them sent back here from Ireland. So we'll talk about that, plus the Migrant of the Day story as well, 6:32.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:34. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Emma Wolf is here as well. We've got some real treats for you this morning, Emma, because Ed Miliband's back in the news.
Make it stop.
He's been criticised by the head of British Gas, who's apparently said basically his attack on gas boilers is completely and utterly abominable and ridiculous.
It is.
And he needs to, you know, shut up, basically.
Pipe down.
Pipe down. Very good. Yeah. And also, Jurgen's back in the news, our favourite man. Here we go. Abominable Ed, page 4 of the Sun. Ed Miliband's proposal to slap higher taxes on homes with gas boilers was branded an abomination yesterday. This is according to Chris O'Shea, the British gas boss. Comes as Mr Miliband considers stripping green taxes from electricity bills to encourage more people to fork out for expensive heat pumps. Well, of course. But meanwhile, we've got Ed Miliband over the weekend taking some questions from some children.
Have you got some questions for us?
What is the first thing we could do to make the world a better place?
Oh, what a good question. One, I think be kind to each other. That's one way we can make the world a better place. And then if I think about what I'm trying to do in the government, I'm trying to get lots of new ways that we can power our country, like solar power, wind power. What's good about that is it's good for tackling climate change because you're not burning fossil fuels, which is what helps cause climate change, but also you can get cheaper energy bills for people. Yeah. So you're trying to do both of those things together. You're trying to make things better now, and you're trying to protect against climate change.
Well, it's why he's now lying to children, right? Yeah. That's great, isn't it? You're telling them that you can get cheaper bills. He's been promising us cheaper energy bills since government got in, and all that's happened to them is it's gone up.
Do you know what really, really makes me angry about all this and about the woke generation preaching to us all, and Greta Thunberg telling us, you have killed us, you've burnt our planet.
How dare you?
If you gave these children, if you cut off their electricity, if you lived the way that we lived back as kids, where you turned off the lights when you left the room, where you shared a bath with your brothers and sisters, frankly, where you don't live in such an energy consumption way.
You don't have a phone that's permanently on.
You don't have a phone that is permanently on charge. You don't have all of this stuff. You're not constantly jumping on and off flights. These children would fall apart.
Yeah.
So all of this, like, oh, the next generation, the snowflakes, we're so green, it's absolute nonsense. And as for Ed Miliband telling everybody to get exploding heat pumps, that's going to end well.
I know, it's ridiculous. Well,
absolutely
and here's
ridiculous.
Our good friend Jurgen from GB Energy. It turns out this is a BBC investigation. You know, because he's been going around putting solar panels on schools, right?
Yeah.
Turns out that the solar panels, which he described as the first major project for Great British Energy, a company owned by the British people, for the British people, says basically it turns out that the first 11 schools involved in the scheme bought the solar panels from China.
Unbelievable.
Right? From the Chinese, two companies, IECO and Longi, two Chinese firms which have been linked to producing these solar panels using slave labour.
Using slave labour.
So not only is it not GB Energy, we call it China Energy. You know, it is not. They're not adding anything to the.
And those schools, some of those schools had to close because of the exploding solar panels. You know, because they're not even safe.
Yeah.
I think Jurgen.
Where was that? Was it a school where the solar panels went on fire?
Yeah. It was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that's a great success.
Yeah.
And I think Jurgen, once in a while, he thinks, oh, I've got to justify this salary, because, we've, discussed he does nothing. He sits in that big empty office.
Yeah.
He's got a couple of those big empty offices, and he says, GB Energy, and everyone goes, well, what's that?
He's only been there 4 times. The office in Aberdeen, he's only been there 4 times. He's not based in Aberdeen.
I wonder how many flights he's taken in that time.
He's based in somewhere like Salford, I think, where he's gone a few times.
Allegedly.
But I mean, he's got offices everywhere, but doesn't really have any staff.
Doesn't have any staff. So I think he needs to justify his salary. So once in a while he pops up and says, I've put all these solar panels on top of schools.
Yeah.
Oops, some of them exploded. It's absolute nonsense, isn't it?
BBC quotes the Chinese government. They've denied all allegations of human rights abuses in Xinjiang.
Oh, so that's okay then. Yeah, that's okay then.
Nicely checked out by BBC Verified.
Yeah.
Oh no, the Chinese say they're not doing that.
Oh, that's okay then. Oh, if it's BBC Verified, I'll accept that.
Yeah.
Plus, over the weekend, there was more about the lithium batteries in electric cars, which you've been saying for months and months and months, these things. Where are they produced? What happens to them?
Yeah, right.
Plus, they die.
I think we've got a clip. We've got a Jurgen clip. Let's have a look.
Treat.
It will help bring energy prices down.
When?
Well, it's a matter for government and policy to decide.
But as the boss of this, and as someone who is driving forward the ambition of the government, you surely have an idea in your head of when that central pledge to the people of reducing their bills by £300 will come into action.
It is not in the remit of Great British Energy to work out exactly how that energy costing gets through to the consumer.
No. So what exactly is in the
what
remit
is the point
of Great British Energy? Apparently to buy some solar panels from China and pretend and pass them off as British. Unbelievable, isn't it? Meanwhile, Dale Vince, our good mate down in Gloucestershire way, who runs Forest Green Rovers, which was a reasonably successful football team until he took it over. No, it's slightly unkind. He got it into the Football League, but then he got knocked out again. He's apparently joining forces with some doctor, GP turned MP, Dr. Simon Opher, O-P-H-E-R. I don't know, I presume he's from the Green Party or the Labour Party or something. He's pioneered social prescriptions to patients instead of antidepressants, and he's prescribing, would you believe, going to football matches to cure your depression. All of which sounds fine and dandy if you're going to go and watch, you know, some really incredible football. But Forest Green Rovers is not going to cheer you up. And like I said, you can't even get a decent burger there or a pie.
Can't get a pie or a pint, presumably.
Yeah.
Meeting Dale Vince is guaranteed to plunge anyone into depression. And also, this is nothing new. This is like saying, oh, guess what? Going for a walk, being outside, being with other people, going to watch a football match, doing something social, go to a sporting event is really good for your mental health. Yeah. Well done, Dale Vince.
Yeah. Well,
now,
I mean, I presume there's quite a few empty seats in the stadium down there, and I think it's made of wood as well.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Which sounds like a bit of a fire risk.
Do you have to wear
Don't park your electric car near it in case it all blows up.
Do you have to wear a Dale Vince keffiyeh?
Yeah, I think you have to, yeah.
Goodness
yeah, you get a free one. You've probably got a Forest Green Rovers keffiyeh, you know, with instead of a scarf.
A football scarf, but in the shape of the Palestine colours and the keffiyeh.
Yeah. You probably have them playing in Palestine colours, actually, by the time it's ended. A lot of stories about water as well this morning. Water firms facing calls for compensation, front page of the Times. Oh, actually, yeah, I've forgotten about the front page of the Times because we haven't done Rachel Reeves. Rachel Reeves expected to reject pressure from left-wing Labour MPs to implement a wealth tax. So there'll be yet more, no doubt, rebellions on the back benches, won't there?
I mean, they're such a mess. They really, really don't know what their policy is.
No.
And what really angers me about this...
They just career from one to the...
Tell us what your policies are. Yeah. Stop lying. All of the spending promises have been proved to be a total tissue of lies.
Totally.
Pretty much everything in the manifesto. Well, everything they have done wasn't in the manifesto, except for 16 votes for 16 17-year-olds, which was a whole other...
that passed us by the other day. I mean...
That's a whole other ballpark.
It happened just after we finished the show.
Why not 10? Why not 5?
Yeah.
Why can't my 5-year-old have a vote? Why not?
I know, might as well.
Where's the... Yeah, be more intelligent than this lot.
But I mean... But I love the intro in the Times because it's almost as if they've been listening to this show. You know, they've decided not to put the wealth tax on after cabinet ministers warned it would not raise any money because wealthy people would just leave the UK. Really? You think?
You think?
I mean, they already have.
I know.
They literally already have.
People are fleeing in droves.
There's a Scandinavian billionaire, who said basically Britain's gone to hell, and he's selling up and leaving and going back home, and he's got a £250 million mansion for sale in London, in case you want to...
Mike, it's not... Well, I'm looking...
Get your hooks into some family money.
Yeah. It is funny, but it's not, because he can leave. He can just sell up and leave. When you say Britain has gone to hell, and this is what so many of us have been saying, but Brits have been saying, this is not the country that I recognise or want to live in anymore. That is terribly, terribly sad.
It is really sad. On water, front page of the Times, water companies could be forced to pay customers compensation in disputes. The government has said as it considered that household water bills will keep rising into the 2030s. Steve Reed, as I said, was doing the rounds yesterday, actually came and spoke to Talk. I think it was Peter Cardwell. Let's have a look.
Our water system is completely broken. You only have to look at the state of sewage at record levels in our rivers, lakes and seas up and down the country. So we've already taken steps to start fixing that. We're resetting the system by giving the regulator the power they need to ban those undeserved multi-million-pound bonuses that the water bosses were paying themselves, and increasing penalties, including jail sentences for certain types of offending.
So they want to put people in jail for what? Charging you too much for your water? Or for... What's going on now?
I know.
What's he talking about?
And then there'll
or
be
is it just for sewage?
Wave of compensation claims.
I think they should. You know what they should do with these guys? Don't put them in jail. Take them to where the sewage is and chuck them in.
Make them take showers and baths and family holidays in that filthy water.
And then maybe that might change their mind.
Because they're not swimming in human waste, are they? I mean, the whole water industry is so broke.
It is
Obviously, Breed
ridiculous.
said it there, but he's obviously been listening to your show, because we've talked about it many, many times. If there's not a hosepipe ban, then there's flash flooding. They can't deal with it. Oh, do you know what? Let's not build any reservoirs, said Mad Ed Miliband a few years ago. We can't build those reservoirs, and now we can't collect the rain.
Now it's against climate change.
So now
isn't it?
we're having a drought. I mean, really?
Environmentally, it's not
To
friendly.
build a reservoir is not against net zero
I
targets.
can't understand why it's environmentally unsafe. I think it's because they don't want to put sort of concrete into the countryside. I don't think it's.
Why don't we just import a load of
thing.
lithium batteries and solar panels instead then?
Yeah, it's probably a much
I
better
mean,
idea.
we've always collected water. It's what people in the olden days used to do. They'd collect rainwater. They would collect, you know, in buckets.
People still do it in the countryside.
To water their gardens with.
Right.
That's what reservoirs are. People love living in reservoirs.
Yeah.
People, the
They're rather
Barnes
beautiful.
Reservoir is glorious. There's a reservoir in Islington. There's a reservoir in Crout. They're beautiful places. And we're collecting the water that falls. We're an island nation.
I know.
It's not hard.
You wouldn't have thought it would be. Have we got another
And
Ed
it's not
Miliband?
hard not to discharge all the waste.
No. Have we got? No, we haven't got another Ed Miliband. Don't worry.
Good.
We've got a voice note from Mark.
Morning, it's Mark in Lancashire. Just in answer to Emma's question of when this Labour government moved the asylum seekers out of the hotels, where did they go? Well, that lady who was complaining, saying that they're all in the hotel a mile away, they're going to move them into that rental property next door. So it's going to get even worse. They're going to disperse them among the community, and they think that that's going to make the problem better, but it's not. They're going to be closer, they're going to be less controlled, and it's going to be even worse.
Yeah, it's going to be even worse. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Coming up, what should we talk about next? Oh, yes, I think we should talk about no more kettles for Gen Z. They don't like kettles, apparently, probably frightened of using them. Too much electricity? I don't know. 6:45.
The fish rots from the head. Tim Davie, you are the head of the fish. You are the head of the BBC. It is an appalling organisation that has been encouraging, I would say, and certainly complicit in scandal after scandal after scandal on our dime as the licence payer. So not only should Tim Davie be fired, not allowed to resign, be fired, but also surely, and I know this has been called for in the past, but surely the BBC must stand on its own 2 feet financially.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:47. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Emma Wolf is here with me as well. Let's get a voice note from Perry.
One quick question this morning, Mike. Why do they always put music when he talks? Is it because the man's so boring, or is it something that your producers do to help keep your listeners awake? Because I don't see the point in it. You know, does it make him sound more interesting with some dreary music going on in the background? Well, it probably does liven him up a bit, but how pathetic.
Yeah, but it's worse though, because we wouldn't do that. It's Labour's own music that they put on. We call it, this is like the soft porn 70s music, right? That they started with, but now they've reached all sorts of, you know, they're now putting
Stirring heights.
Like Tangerine Dream from the 1970s.
Very weird.
A bit of you know, a synthesizer going on. You know, Rick Wakeman on one of them next.
It's to try and make it really stirring and to try and make it really uplifting. What if they put it on with a bit of, I don't know, grime or something in the background?
They might as well have an Oompa band for the German, shouldn't they? You know, something out for the Munich beer festival. But listen, a couple of other stories to talk about. By the way, I've got a note from Nigel, our good friend, who occasionally surprises me with the odd piece of news. Apparently, there's going to be a big Extinction Rebellion event coming up at the weekend.
Can't wait.
July the 27th, Sunday, from 6 to 9 p.m. You're going to be invited to the first online movement assembly.
Of course it's online.
Online movement assembly.
Oh dear.
Register for the assembly. The question, how might we effectively engage and activate more people in the climate and nature crises?
How might we engage and activate more people, and they're doing it online? Oh dear, what an irony.
I know.
They can't even be bothered to turn up. I thought Extinction Rebellion, like Just Stop Oil, had gone a bit quiet because a few people were in prison. So they went, Just Stop Oil, that shut them up, didn't it?
That did shut them up.
Really did. It stopped them taking their foreign holidays and things.
The latest middle-class idiot went to... calls himself a queer dance artist. I think we might have some footage of this guy who was at the Royal Opera House.
Of course he was. Of course he was.
He's in the cast of an opera, you know, which is not very
Il
sort of
Trovatore on Saturday night.
You've probably seen that. I haven't.
I have. It's a wonderful opera.
Yeah, but at the end he unfurls a Palestinian flag. Somebody tried to grab it off him and he grabs it back and he just stands there holding it. I mean, it just looks completely idiotic, apart from the fact that he's wearing horns on his head. I mean, I don't think he thinks he looks like dress-up time for your son, you know. I've got some horns on my head and a Palestinian flag. It turns out he went to a £48,000 a year school, which is called the Tring Park School for Performing Arts.
Very posh school in Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
Performing Arts
Daniel
School,
Perry,
of course.
his name is. And he calls himself a queer dance artist. Well, good luck in Palestine, matey.
Really, good luck in Palestine.
Why don't you go and put on some queer dance music in Palestine, Gaza? Have you fancy a bit of that?
That'll go down. I'm sure Hamas will love that. Why is this appropriate? It's at the Royal Opera House.
Yeah. I know an awful lot of people actually were very unhappy about it as well, because they get an awful lot of funding from the arts groups, some of which will be, you know, less sympathetic to Palestine than he is. Let's put it that way.
What? I mean, whatever you think of this chap, this queer, what was he? Queer
dance artist.
Okay. Why bring politics into a night at the opera?
I know. There's no point, but this is the problem with these bloody
It's just not appropriate.
You know.
It's almost as though they haven't been taught. You know that thing about, you know, there's a time and a place?
Yeah.
You know...
But they're all, I mean, this is the thing, most Labour Party supporting people now are all poshos because they've come from these kind of, you know, private school backgrounds, because most working people couldn't care less about the Palestine
because they're getting on with their
front,
lives?
because they're too busy making a living to feed their kids.
And worrying about the fact that...
holiday.
Exactly, and worrying about the fact that the local state school, because they can't afford 48 grand a year for a performing arts school.
Most people don't. 48 grand is more than the average salary in this country.
Yeah.
And you can afford to send your kids to the
I'm afraid
school.
I've felt this for a long time. It's people with too much money and too much time on their hands who are doing all this, and actually the rest of the country is trying to get on with their life.
Yeah, exactly right. Speaking of getting on with your life, for generations putting the kettle on has been the perfect step to making the perfect cup of tea, but not for Gen Z, who apparently prefer to use microwave ovens.
This is such an abomination.
Isn't it?
Have you ever had a stew... So they're putting... And by the way, it's not cheaper. You put a mug of water, presumably tepid cold water, in the microwave for about 2.5 minutes.
Right.
To boil a kettle takes about 48 seconds.
Yeah.
So you come out with this hot-ish cup of hot water.
Right.
Then you put the tea bag in.
No.
What is the point of that?
No.
So they're doing it because they won't boil a kettle, but apparently they're not allowed kettles.
Is that because they don't own kettles?
Well, I think it's partly that, but I think that kettles are also not allowed in some student accommodation.
Oh, really?
Which is really odd, because why are microwaves allowed?
Yeah.
But also the taste of a cup of tea that has been sort of... The water's been vaguely heated up, and then they wave the tea bag around in the warm water.
Isn't there some scientific thing that happens when you boil water and
you pour it onto the tea bag, or the tea leaves,
and then the tea actually
releases the flavour.
Yeah.
And then you add the milk.
Which doesn't happen if you haven't got boiling water.
Of course.
Right?
And 22% of people are adding the milk first into a cold cup, which apparently is also really disgusting. I don't drink tea, but if you tried to make me a coffee like that, I'd throw it in your face in a non-violent way.
Yeah, absolutely not. How about this one? This will cheer you up. Lord Hermer has got a load of staff working in his office, right? But many of them have decided to work from home, and they've spent more than £1 million spent on working from home equipment so that they could all work from home. The government's legal department, the Crown Prosecution Service and the Serious Fraud Office spent £1.24 million on computers, desks and other equipment. What's other equipment?
OK, I'll tell you.
Right?
People claiming for really expensive, ergonomically adapted chairs for the equipment. I would be really interested to know how many, because there are many questions about Hermer, how many of those staff, when they finish, when they stop working for him, because lots of them will be, you know, part-time or whatever, Where does that equipment go? Do they return? The whole thing. I mean, £1.2 million of taxpayers' money.
It's totally ridiculous.
Being given, and they shouldn't be working from home anyway.
Yeah.
And if they should be, why are they demanding, you know, perfectly working place desks and
but
chairs
this is it,
and
again,
equipment?
Public sector work, isn't it? You know, if you want to work from home, they all give you everything.
Of course, because it's
you know.
unsafe. I don't want to sit in an unsafe kitchen chair to do my work from home.
Right.
What?
And, you know, I must have a proper desk which is, you
Of
know,
course,
somehow suitable.
inclined. Or I need a
Yeah.
standing desk, maybe.
Yeah. I'll tell you what else is a weird story, is on the same page, about this woman with 165,000 followers on Instagram posting images showing her enjoying the tennis at Wimbledon. It looks like she's got an Aperol Spritz or a Pimm's or something like that. Pictures of her on the court. Turns out she doesn't exist. She's a complete AI invention.
Oh, dear.
Right? And she's got all these people who follow her. Indian cricketer Rishabh Pant was taken in. The 27-year-old was at Wimbledon, discovered the account he had liked was a fake one and quickly deleted all of his interactions with it.
I'm really, this whole AI
worrying,
thing
isn't
is
it?
just extremely weird.
Yeah.
I mean, half the stuff you watch, you're not even sure whether it's, you know, whether it's real or not.
I know. Very strange. Very strange indeed.
It is extremely weird.
Absolutely right. Now, let me read you a couple of these. Morning, Mike and Emma. If these illegals come here without documentation, then as far as I'm concerned, they are French, so send them back there, says Dave in Colne. Labour needs to understand we are not interested in any of their policies until it sorts out migration, says Alan in Merseyside. And people are getting really worked up about it. And we should talk, I suppose, as well about that, the migrant who can't be sent back to Afghanistan or Iran or Pakistan because he's claimed to be from all three places, and now the authorities don't know which place to send him back to. So guess what? We'll just keep him here.
But isn't there a way, I don't know whether, you know, in terms of DNA and things, isn't there a way of tracing? Because you see, you know, we've seen images of men who look to me, to be in their 30s or 40s, claiming to be 16, 17, but guess what? Their passports fell overboard or their papers fell overboard on the way here, and they're from this country or they're from that country. There must be some way that we just say, I'm really sorry.
Well, you would think, but I mean, this guy who's
come
not
here
named,
illegally.
again not named, has been in the asylum system for 10 years. He had his first asylum claim was rejected 10 years ago after failing to establish that he had a well-founded fear of persecution if he was returned to Iran, right? He was not removed to the UK, so he then lodged an appeal claiming to have lived in Afghanistan until he was 17 before travelling to Iran, and he now fears persecution by the Taliban.
This is just an that's another thing that we're going to see, and I'm extremely sympathetic to those Afghans who did work with or alongside our armed forces, of course. But over the weekend, we've seen more and more of these people who've come over with 22. I mean, 22 family members. I don't think I could name 22 family members who are close enough, who I could probably talk to, who are close enough that I would travel to another country with and then live with. Where are they living? Where are they?
Well, there was a story at the weekend as well about somebody who came with 150 relatives. 150 relatives, yes. I kid you not.
Do you have 150 family relatives?
I don't have 150 friends.
I don't have
150. I can go through my contacts.
Probably 150 people I could talk to.
Yeah, I mean,
let alone.
It's just mad.
It is absolutely mad, and that is the problem, Mike. Without sounding unsympathetic, this system we are already seeing. I mean, on the front of the Times, there are already lawyers circling, law firms circling. They've got hundreds.
Can you imagine what's going to happen?
100 new Afghan clients are signing up every day. This is Bearings, which is a very high-profile law firm. You know, Afghans signing up every day after the lifting of the super injunction. Thousands of victims of the data breach are expected to lodge claims collectively worth hundreds of millions of pounds.
The Times has got this guy, Adnan Malik, the head of data protection for Bearings Law, talking about an Afghan soldier who came to Britain under the relocation and assistance policy, and he believes the man's brother was shot dead. But then later on in the story, he says, I'm assuming the Taliban put two and two together and killed him. But they don't actually know. The Times haven't been able to establish that the guy's even dead. So you'll get loads of these
put
cases.
two and two together. He says, putting two and two, I'm assuming the Taliban put two and two together. That's not a legal case.
No.
How is that a legal case?
No, but you know what's going to happen.
So we are paid once, and now we're going to be paying hundreds of millions of pounds. Suddenly, lots of people in Afghanistan are
relatives of people who fought for the British Army.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Or everybody that's over here will suddenly become Afghan.
Yeah. Oh, they will.
This one is going to kind of
and we've built our own
on.
house, and it's now being burned down by these people.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, we have built this house based on foundations of sand.
This is now the
It's also
claim.
about fixing the
I'm Afghan.
foundations.
I'm from Afghanistan.
Right. I've got a brother there who's killed over the weekend
Yeah.
because of the data leak. Here's a couple 100,000. That's how it's going to work. Absolutely ridiculous. This from Brian in Worthing. Morning, Mike and Emma. With reference to water, why not build desalination plants? We are surrounded by the bloody stuff. There are no hosepipe bans in Saudi Arabia. Well, again, when I said this years ago on talkTV, people were ridiculing me, going, "Oh, no, but the concrete bloke thinks you can have desalination plants. You can put salt water on the fields." I was like, "No, you can actually desalinate water. They do it in the Middle East all the time."
Of course they do.
People are
That's how they survive in 45 degrees temperatures every day.
I know.
It is not beyond the wit of man. But when you have people like Ed Miliband in charge, it is.
It really is. I wish you could put him in the sea, in the nicest possible way, of course. Just
no,
to
on a polluted beach.
Yeah.
Somewhere that used to be beautiful.
Cheers, Ed. Yeah, with some silicon and some solar panels. Anyway, Emma, thank you very much indeed. Coming up in the next hour, what are we doing? I'm not sure. Will Kingston's here. We'll be talking about more from Afghanistan and more from the mother of all parliaments. This is Talk.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up for 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. We've got lots of you getting in touch and lots of you giving us many, many different views on all the stuff we've been talking about this morning. Nigel Farage on the front pages of the papers this morning talking about a new justice beginning, really, for Britain. Let's get rid of some of the most horrible and venal criminals, sex crimes, the paedophiles that take places up in our prison system. Nigel Farage says he wants to send some of the worst ones to prisons overseas because he wants to build 30,000 new prison places in this country. So in order to ease up what seems to be a sort of terminal congestion inside the prisons of this country, he says chuck some of them into El Salvador prison system, chuck them into the Colombian prison system, chuck them into any system overseas which is going to be an awful lot less likely to be friendly to them, and maybe, just maybe, it'll put them off committing more crimes. It's not a bad idea, and a lot of you already think that it is already a much better idea than anything the Labour government have said. They've come out and, of course, said, oh, this is unworkable, you can't do it. Oh, well, it's much more workable, is it, to let people out of prison, even though they haven't really served their time. Oh, yeah, let's let people out after serving 40% of their sentence for a sex crime. I don't think so. We'll be talking to Will Kingston about that coming up in the next hour. Also, we'll be talking about immigration and the whole problem that we now have in this country, which appears to be, in many ways, completely unsolvable. I don't know what you can say to me about solving the problem of migrants in hotels. We're still seeing many, many demonstrations going on over in Epping Forest overnight. There was more clashes with the police. There were plenty of peaceful demonstrations as well, of course. And as you can see, the migrant tracker there, up to nearly 47,000 now people who have come on small boats since the Labour government got in. They keep talking about getting rid of the asylum hotels, but it doesn't look like anything like that is happening. 0344 499 1000. There's a Reform UK Nigel Farage press conference coming up a little bit later on today. We're also going to talk about the doctors' strikes, which get underway on Friday, unless there's some dramatic intervention from West Streeting. But it looks like they've had something like a 91% pay rise, doctors, in the last 8 years alone. Absolutely extraordinary. The i-newspaper says that the pension age might have to go up to 68, possibly even 69. Pretty soon you'll be 75 before you can cash in your pension. Absolutely and utterly ridiculous. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note from Nick.
Morning, Mike. Nick Morliffe. Can somebody please explain to me the lunacy of a system whereby a member of the European Union, i.e. Ireland, can send illegal immigrants back to the UK when we are totally incapable, it would seem, of sending a single person back to France who's clearly and evidently crossed the channel illegally on a rubber dinghy. I don't understand. I'm having a meltdown, as I tend to on a Monday morning, Mike, when I tune into you. Have a good day.
Nick, thank you very much indeed. Well, we'll get an answer from an immigration lawyer coming up in this hour, because that's exactly who we're going to be speaking to. This from Steve. He says, morning, Mike. My opinion is that moving the migrants out from the migrant hotels into the community via private landlords would be a horrendous idea. The thought of a house full of these people moving into a house next door to my partner and teenage daughter would enrage me. Illegal criminals is what they are. They should be treated as such. They have shown they cannot be trusted to live within our culture and our values, so should not have the freedom to wander about, full stop. Illegal criminals. And a lot of people will have that view. And of course, it would be completely and utterly fair to say that not every single person in one of these migrant hotels is a criminal, but potentially they could be. And so until you know exactly what they've done, until you know exactly where they've come from, and until you know exactly where they're going, you have really got no idea. So, you know, the reason that there's a demonstration going on every single day now in Epping Forest outside of the hotel, the Bell Hotel, is because one of the residents of that hotel has now been arrested and charged with a sex crime against a young girl in that part of the world. And so there's a flashpoint which is not going to be stopped in any way, shape or form by the police turning up and cracking a few heads. That's not the way to solve it. The government needs to get out in front of it and start addressing it. And they need to start talking to the people of Epping, and they need to start talking to the people of Britain. Not with some of these ridiculous sound bites, fixing the foundations, signing up with Germany, you know, a potential pact, you know, to end the people smuggling gang guns. No, that's not what's going to make anybody convinced that the government's doing anything about it. Do something about it. You know, we now find out that about 400 people, migrants, have been returned from Ireland to Britain because they've actually managed to scam both countries into claiming asylum in both countries, getting benefits in both countries at the same time. It's quite an extraordinary story. Let's talk to Will Kingston, political commentator, host of the Fire at Will podcast. Nick, a very good morning to you. Will, sorry. I don't know why I called you Nick there.
No worries. Nick called just earlier, and I empathise with his Monday morning meltdowns because I often have the same feeling with these depressing stories that you wake up to at the start of the week.
But it is extraordinary that we now find ourselves in a situation where you've got ordinary people, a lot of them women, standing up in Epping Forest and just having their voices heard. They're not happy. They've had enough, effectively. We've been saying it for a long time. People in this country are sick to the back teeth of having their lives taken for granted, having their communities taken for granted, and quite frankly, having their communities invaded by people who they don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember the lady's name who was on that platform, blonde-haired lady who made a really powerful speech. I thought it was one of the better speeches I've heard in public life in some time.
Yeah.
And it was powerful because it was just an everyday mum speaking from the heart, saying, you know what, I'm not a racist, I'm not far right, I'm not what the media paints these people out to be, but I'm genuinely worried about the safety of my children, and I'm genuinely worried about the future of my communities. And I think that's been the change that I've noticed in the last 3 or 4 months, is people are done with the whole you're a racist thing now. They're just saying, I don't care. They're done with the whole you're a far right lunatic thing now. It's water off a duck's back now because people have had enough.
Yeah, they really have. Let's play it because we played it in the first hour, but a lot of people just joining haven't heard it yet. This is from Epping yesterday.
We felt a lot of the press were incorrectly reporting us on Friday morning after our on Thursday.
Yeah. Sorry, we'll fix that. It seems to be just jumping around a little bit. We'll get back to that one. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's do Rachel Reeves then, shall we? This was her back in June, saying that this was apparently. I know we got no clips. No, sorry, we got a system failure, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies. Somebody from Labour just been in to screw all that for us. Well, anyway, listen. So here's the point. You've got hundreds of migrants living in these taxpayer-funded hotels across the UK this weekend, right, accused of offences including rape, sex attacks, robbery, theft, violence. So it's no longer just, you know, a kind of what would have been described a few weeks or months ago as some kind of, you know, right-wing trope. This is absolutely happening in every single part of this country. And an awful lot of the places where these guys are living have become hotbeds of crime. I mean, we already saw a couple of weeks ago how many of them were working as food delivery drivers illegally, right? We now know that many of them are committing crimes locally into the neighbourhoods where they are, many of them sex crimes. And people need to know that it's going to be stopped.
Well, you know what I'm really sick of, Mike? I'm sick of the gaslighting because there's still, from Jess Phillips to all the Labor politicians, still refuse to concede the obvious, which is that there are different nationalities which commit crimes at different rates in this country. We now know that. We know the data that says that Afghans are something like 20 times more likely to commit sexual offences. We know that I think 1 in 5 Albanians in this country have been arrested, the most extraordinary statistic. And yet you still hear these Labor politicians going, well, in the case of sexual assault, it's a male problem, it's not a cultural problem. People know that if you take people from a barbarous third world country like Afghanistan, and I'm sorry to say it, but Afghanistan is an awful, terrible, medieval country, they're going to have particular values instilled into them from a very early age, which are very different and in many cases much worse than this country. This is common sense. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work this out. So if you put them all in a hotel, they're going to be more likely to go out and commit crimes in this country. I'm so sick of people not acknowledging that basic fact.
Well, exactly. An investigation by the Mail at the weekend said that at least 312 asylum seekers have been charged with an astonishing 708 alleged criminal offences in just 3 years, including rape, sexual assault, attacking emergency workers and theft. And so, you know, there will be lefties who will go, oh, yeah, but there's like thousands of them here, so if there's only 312 been arrested, that's quite good. And you go, well, no, that's hardly the point. We don't need to be importing crime into this country. We've got plenty of homegrown criminals. Nobody's going to pretend that that's not true. And we've got plenty of homegrown sex offenders as well. However, that doesn't mean you can add to that number by bringing people in. I find it ironic as well. We heard an Afghan guy on the news there talking about, you know, we must show a duty of care to the people who fought with the British Army in Afghanistan. You know, I mean, the words duty of care are somewhat ironic, coming from a land where they've basically been at war with each other for the best part of a few hundred years.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I hadn't considered that. Duty of care is a Western legal principle that is thoroughly unknown in Afghanistan. Yeah, look, Mike, it's a really sad state of events. I think the Afghan story, which will continue to roll on, is the greatest scandal, with the exception of the grooming gangs, in modern times. And the thing which I think the Afghan scandal needs to come to mind for us is that every single one of those people who's entering the country is illegally is a choice. I listened to one of your shows last week on the podcast. I actually disagree with you. I don't think that a single Afghan should be allowed into this country, even if they did serve with British troops. I think we can resettle them safely in third countries. But the reality remains, even if they did serve, they are still far more likely to commit crimes here. They're still far more likely to put women and children at risk here, and they were very well remunerated when they were working with British soldiers overseas. I think it is an unacceptable risk, even despite the fact that they have supported this country. And by the way, the ones that did support this country, in terms of the total number, which now could be up to 200,000, is vanishing.
Well, the system is so bad, right, that we have no idea even if the right people who should have come here are in fact even here, you know. I mean, I think you do. I think there are particular circumstances under which many of the people that help the British Army need to be able to be looked after, because they were working maybe in intelligence, they might have been working in, close combat and all that sort of thing. But certainly not all of them, and certainly not their families, and certainly not. I think you have to say to people, you have to make a choice.
Yeah. Well,
if I go and live. Relocate myself in the witness protection program, you don't get to take 100 relatives with you, just because the mafia wants to kill you. You get to go probably with one person, and you don't see anybody else the rest of your life. That's the way it goes. If you want to take that risk, then come and join the British Army and fight with us in Afghanistan and see how that goes. But that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think that the two things I'd say is, number one, if we do want to support those people, then we resettle them in countries which are more culturally compatible. It doesn't mean we need to resettle them in the United Kingdom. And the other thing that I would say is that there is a very, very small amount of people who actually we do have that duty of care to, and the numbers are now blown out, obviously, beyond all comprehension.
Well, they are. And forget about just the Afghanistans. I mean, there's still plenty of Afghanis coming, on the small boats as well. We've got a guy right now who's claiming to be from Afghanistan. He's been here 14 years. He used to say he was from Iran. Now he says he's from Afghanistan, and he can't be deported to either place because they don't know which country to send him to. So he gets to stay. And then the other amazing story at the weekend was the Sunday Times expose of how many of these asylum seekers are now learning the ropes of the system so quickly that they're nipping across to Ireland and claiming asylum in Ireland as well as claiming it here.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show, if you don't
double
change
bubble, as it says.
Yeah. If you don't change the fundamental incentives, then people will keep coming to the country. And you mentioned the word before when you were talking about the new Farage scheme, the word unworkable or unfixable, which you hear now from just a lot of Labor politicians who have given up on this issue. And the thing which I find so incredibly frustrating is these people forget that they hold the levers of power. They forget that they're in government. They just keep saying, well, we can't fix this problem because of, the judiciary or because of international human rights law. Change the judiciary, change international human rights law. The UK is almost unique in how easy it is to be able to get stuff through this parliament compared to, say, the United States or Australia, mind you. I'm so sick of these people basically just saying, well, for these vague, nebulous reasons, and because we keep stuffing it up in the past, we now no longer are able to fix this problem in the future. It's a furphy.
It really is. I think we can fix the video system now. So let's have a look at this mother who's concerned about the migrant hotel, the Bell Hotel this is in Epping.
A lot of the press were incorrectly reporting us on Friday morning after our protest on Thursday. And so we just wanted to make it really clear that we're strong women, we're mums, we're sisters, we're aunties, we're parents of the area. So we're just here to support. Everybody is really concerned about who is in that hotel. Crime in the area is shocking, and this is a beautiful place to live. And we are all very concerned, as are other people in other towns around the country. We need to stick together, peaceful protest, and the government need to listen to us. They need to listen to real people on the ground, people that work hard and love their country. And we're here to protect that. Our values are very important and we must protect them.
Very difficult to disagree with anything she says there, isn't it?
Well said. Yeah, no, really well said. And again, it does have an extra resonance and power when it just does come from everyday community members like that, as opposed to politicians. I don't have anything further to add to that. I think it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. Let's talk about Rachel Reeves, because she made a claim back in June that they were going to end the migrant hotels. Let's have a look at that clip.
Billions of pounds of taxpayers' money spent on housing asylum seekers in hotels, leaving people in limbo and shunting the cost of failure onto local communities. We won't let that stand. So I can confirm today that, led by the work of my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, we will be ending the costly use of hotels to house asylum seekers in this Parliament. Funding that I have provided today, including from the Transformation Fund, will cut the asylum backlog, hear more appeal cases and return people who have no right to be here, saving the taxpayer £1 billion a year. That is my choice, Mr. Speaker. That is the Labour choice. That is the choice of the British people.
Well, she says that. She says, I have provided the money. She hasn't actually provided the money. It's actually we who have provided the money to her to go and waste it on a load of asylum hotels. It doesn't appear as though anything's changed, does it?
No, well, a couple of things. Number one, she was talking tough, but then she was saying they're going to get this done by 2029. So it's hardly like it's a pressing priority. But the other thing is the gaslighting here is extraordinary because what they're doing at the moment, and I think I saw a report saying that they were bragging that they reduced their bill on migrant hotels by about 30%. But the reason they've done that is they're just moving all these people into private housing, which is more expensive than a hotel. It's not like the fundamental principle of putting someone in plush accommodation doesn't change whether or not you're in a hotel or you're in a nice house somewhere. You're still a threat to the community. You're still being subsidised by the taxpayer. Yeah. The fact is you need to put those people in detention centres, ideally in an offshore detention centre. That is what works. That's what worked in Australia. Yeah. And again,
and that's what they're doing they're doing that in Greece now as well, by the looks of things, right?
Because it's the only solution. It's the only option. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that if you give someone the option of a nice hotel as opposed to being, sitting on a field in Calais, you're going to take that option. Alligator Alcatraz, another wonderful example from the United States where you need to have an effective deterrent. And at the moment, the UK doesn't have that. And it won't have that if we continue just moving them from hotels into nice private accommodation somewhere else. It's the same fundamental problem.
Yeah, it really is. Absolutely right. Will, we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Will Kingston, political commentator, host of the Fire at Will podcast. The government are going to try and spin a line this week that basically the numbers of people or the amount of money spent in hotels is actually coming down because they've somehow negotiated cheaper rates. But it's not because there's fewer people in there. There's actually more people in there, and there's more people coming. So they're moving people out of migrant hotels into low-cost accommodation, which means they're spending slightly fewer billions of pounds every single year. But the numbers of the people haven't actually changed, and that is why it's another piece of disingenuous behaviour by this government, which is increasingly and more alarmingly just telling outright fibs. I mean, poor old Ed Miliband has now started lying to children. Right? He's actually now started telling fibs to little kids. Have a look at this.
Have you got some questions for us?
What is the first thing we could do to make the world a better place?
Oh, what a good question. One, I think be kind to each other. That's one way we can make the world a better place. And then if I think about what I'm trying to do in the government, I'm trying to get lots of new ways that we can power our country, like solar power, wind power. What's good about that is it's good for tackling climate change because you're not burning fossil fuels, which is what helps cause climate change, but also you can get cheaper energy bills for people. Yeah. So you're trying to do both of those things together. You're trying to make things better now, and you're trying to protect against climate change.
Yeah, lower energy bills. He keeps saying it. Now he's lying to kids about it. Marvellous, isn't it? Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. Morning, Emma. It's Andy from Birmingham. Why do you have to show the clips of Starmer first thing in the morning? He just riles my blood just looking at him. When Hoyle's travel in the comments going to pull him up on his constant lies about jobs and growth and creation and everything? Because we all know, I mean, I've got my own company. Nothing's growing. Nothing's being created at the moment. Everybody's scared to death what's going to come in like this some so-called budget. But he keeps on pushing it out. So when are they going to actually say, stop lying?
No, Andy, when they're going to stop, but they don't seem to be showing any signs of stopping. In fact, if anything, the gaslighting is getting even worse. 0344 499 1000. One from George, texting from Bergen, who says, Mike, great show as usual. I've moved to Scandinavia as I could not live in the UK anymore. I'm sick of watching Starmer destroying our country. Norway is a much safer place to bring up my family. Thank you for keeping me sane. What terrible, terrible news that is. Brian from Spain. I mean, so many people listening from abroad. Mike, with reference to building new prisons, if they built basic cells, the latest prison built looks more like a retirement home with ensuite showers, etc. Keep them basic and cheap. Am I being far right? No, you're just being right. To solve the asylum problem, it is simple. Put them in tents, says Michelle, behind fences on disused land with bread and water. We are so overrun now it feels hopeless. It does really feel like it's changed, doesn't it? The whole system seems to have somehow pivoted and become worse in the space of just a few short months and years. Certainly since Labour got in, it seems to be worse. I don't know if that's my imagination. 7:23.
When you look at things like, oh, we need lifestyle medicine, I actually agree with lifestyle medicine instead of taking drugs, but, you know, everyone needs to lose weight to save the NHS. You can see how quickly, if you had digital ID, all of a sudden it's going to be monitoring your shopping. You've had too much cheese this month. Yeah. Or you've bought cigarettes and you shouldn't have done. You know, it's going to turn into very quickly, because this always happens inevitably, something like that sort of Communist Party of China social credit system.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:26. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Everything the multi-billionaire Tony Blair poked his nose into, says Tony. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Palestine and the EU has cost the taxpayer a fortune in migration. That's true. And Simon in Sussex says, in the Royal Navy we had small water desalination plants on all of the warships. We never ran out of fresh water. Well, that's what you'd do if you were sensible. The news breaking this morning is that the water review people have come out and said that Ofwat should be done away with, which is probably no bad thing. They should probably do away with every regulator they've got in this country, to be honest, because none of them work particularly well. Let's talk to Ivan Sampson, our immigration lawyer. Man we haven't seen for a while, actually. Things haven't got any better, Ivan, since we last spoke.
Yes, I mean, this story about these accusations of migrants, we have to remember, though, that being accused of a crime does not make one guilty.
It doesn't.
No, exactly so.
Doesn't make you innocent either, though, does it?
No, but we have got to separate allegations from facts, and we operate on a system of presumed innocence.
We do.
So you've got to be careful.
We've got plenty of convictions as well, though, if we wanted to talk about that.
Indeed, and those that are convicted should be quite, if they've committed offences which are more than 12 months, we have automatic deportation of those people. But the problem is this, is that some people come from countries where we don't have a returns policy.
In which case you can't deport them.
Absolutely, you can't deport them. So that's a political solution that needs to be had for that problem.
Yes.
You can't blame the migrant. I mean, if you can deport them, and many people...
Well, I can blame the migrant for committing a criminal offence which would otherwise normally mean he would or she would be deported. I can blame them for that.
Indeed, and we don't want such people in this country. I mean, it's ironic your previous guest was talking about the Australian model, because in the 1700s we faced the same problem, didn't we? And what do we do with them? We sent them to Australia. 160 odd thousand
We've never looked
people.
back.
But look, we should remove people, and I'm all for a policy of sending people out. Now, the Supreme Court in the Rwanda policy didn't declare it unlawful. What it said was not Rwanda. So you may well see the government trying to secure countries where we can send people.
Well, they are already. They're actively seeking a third country to send people to. In some cases, more than one. They're talking to Serbia. I think they've been talking to Albania as well about that. And you know, as ever, listen. You've always said the same thing, Ivan. That the main fault of all of this lies with the government, and it's true. It does. But it equally has seemingly, and I don't know whether you'd agree with me, it seems to have reached a sort of, mammoth proportion now. We've got more and more people coming in every single week, 47,000 or so since Labour got in, and it's really breaking point time, isn't it?
Well, look, I agree with how the public feel. It feels that way. However, you can't blame people. We can't rely on people's goodwill not to come here. That's not the solution.
I get that. No, I'm not suggesting that is a solution. What I'm saying is it seems to have reached critical mass. It's from the public's perception, we have reached the end of the road, and something has to be done, something probably quite drastic by this government.
Indeed. Now, look, the first job of a government is secure the nation, secure in terms of protection and our borders. And it seems to me that our borders, the people coming across, is determined by good or bad weather, and not by government policy. Now, it can't be right. Now, we don't want people that we don't know where they're coming from in terms of their background, whether they've got previous criminality or not. It's certainly not sustainable. And I agree with you. I'm frustrated, as you are, that this government and the previous government as well really haven't come up with any solution to secure our borders, which is fundamental for any country.
Yeah, exactly right. So what the hell are they doing, and why is it taking them this long? I mean, why have they not even addressed, for example, the people who are demonstrating currently in Epping Forest?
Look, I can't really comment on that. That's not really it's a political question. It's not a legal question. What's important,
But you're not just a lawyer, are you, Ivan? You're a sensible man. You must have a view.
My personal views, I have got personal views. I've got children, and I certainly don't want them, to be subjected to foreign criminals. I don't. But we've got strong laws. The government doesn't use them because it can't use them, because people can't be removed to countries. That is a fundamental problem.
Yeah.
That's a solution.
Turns out, though, I don't know if you saw this story at the weekend. It turns out there's more than 400 people who have been kicked out of Ireland. Asylum seekers, because they've been sort of gaming the system. They've been claiming asylum in the UK and then going to Ireland and claiming it there as well, and in some cases getting double the amount of benefits that they could otherwise have got. And 400 of them have been removed from Ireland and sent back to Britain, ironically.
Yeah, look, we've got to separate the genuine asylum seekers from those people trying to work the system, and you can quite easily, with a broad brush, paint everyone as working the system. There are many, some 50% of those crossing the channel are genuine asylum seekers. And you've got to be careful not to link criminality to migrants, causing xenophobic resentment. You've got to have a balanced
maybe somebody should tell the migrants coming in to stop committing crimes then it won't be everybody gets tarred with the same brush. That's the problem. If you're going to put people up in hotels at huge cost to the taxpayer, and you don't know who they are, and you then are surprised at the fact that they're committing crimes, whether it be one of them or 10 of them or 100 of them, of course that's going to create a sense of division in the country, because it's the government policy that's causing it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but also we can say that to the general public. Don't commit crimes, and we only need prisons. Look, there are criminals, whether they're migrants or people living here. That's just a fact of life. We need government policy to deal with that.
Yeah, but we don't need any more people coming here who are going to commit crimes. We've got enough people here already that commit crime. That's what I'm saying.
Indeed, I agree with you. But, you know, that's the government's job is to secure our borders. Don't blame people for trying to have a better life by looking to the West. That's going to happen. That happened for decades. It'll continue to happen.
Yes, but now it's happening at such a rate, Ivan, that it's destabilising the nation. And you must agree with that.
Well, look, I'm not here to make political comments. I mean,
that's a statement of fact. It's not a political comment. It's a statement of fact. The nation has become destabilised because of several governments' uselessness in dealing with the problem.
I mean, look, we take a fraction of what Germany and France takes in terms of asylum seekers.
No, we're a fraction of the size of Germany and France, and we're a much more densely populated country, so there's good reason for that.
Pakistan and Jordan has million asylum seekers. So in terms of the numbers, we take a fraction. But I agree with you, we can't take everyone. There's 80 million refugees out there. We're in a small island, we can't take everyone, but we've got to take our fair share. I think that's the right thing to do.
I don't think people want to take their fair share anymore. I don't think that kind of phrase is for the past. I think it's not for the future. You know, taking our fair share, we've had our fair share and we've had enough.
Well, your heart might have gone cold, but mine hasn't.
It's not a cold heart. It's a practicality. No. You can't get, you know, into some places in Britain now. You can't get housing. You can't get a doctor's appointment. You can't get on a train if it's not crowded. You can't do anything because it's so busy now in certain parts of this country. And it's changed beyond all belief. And people are sick to death of it.
There's no facts to support what you're saying.
What do you mean there's no facts? What are you saying? Are you saying that we haven't got an increased population since the time that you've been alive?
We have, but the migrant population is a fraction of the problem.
Yes, but it's not a fraction of the problem. It's a massive part of the problem. That's the whole point.
We spend £2 billion a week on the NHS. So, you know, you're talking about waiting lists. It's a bigger problem just blaming on the
Why do you think the waiting lists are getting longer? Because there's more people here using the service. You know, it's all pretty obvious stuff, Ivan. It's not political. It's just facts.
Well, according to you, Mike, but
not just according to me. No, absolutely not, Ivan. I'm not going to have that. It's not according to me. We know that there are more people living here in this country now than there were when I was born. We know that there are more people living here from abroad than when I was born. You know, it's not difficult to know these facts. They're very easily available.
We're a wealthy company. We can suddenly assimilate 25 to 50,000 people a year comfortably.
Do you know what the net migration figures have been?
Well, that's legal migration.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No,
people come here legally. No, hang on, Ivan. People come here legally on business visas. They come here on work visas. They come here on student visas. They overstay the visa. They don't go home. You know that as well as I do.
Yes, there's a million of them.
So that makes them illegal as well.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's the government.
So it's not just small boats.
Indeed, and I've been saying that for years, Mike. There's a million people here undocumented.
Yeah. So you agree with me then?
Yeah, nobody talks about it. We should be having a
We talk about it all the time.
To first apprehend these people and remove them. But if we removed 1 million people, it would take about 100 years to do that.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be here. That's my point. You know, policy after policy.
They are here.
Admitted that. So you've admitted now, finally, that I'm right to say the migration problem is a huge one. It is causing massive problems in all sorts of areas, including trying to get an appointment with a doctor, including trying to get into a house, including all manner of other things. And so, you know, it has reached, as I say, critical mass. You can argue about how it's reached it, but it's definitely reached it.
Well, 1 million migrant and legal people can't go to NHS. They can't get doctor's treatment. They're in the subculture, the black economy. So I'm afraid they know.
Yeah, of course they can.
No, they can't. If you don't have evidence that you're legally here, you cannot get treatment unless it's an emergency.
That's not true. You've got doctors visiting asylum hotels to see people.
Well,
they're not supposed to have access to the NHS either, but they've got it. Trust me.
They are. Asylum seekers do have access. What they're granted is temporary admission.
Well, so people who overstay their visas claim for asylum, and then they get to stay here for another 10 years while the asylum claim is being processed. It's as simple as that. Look, I might as well try and push water uphill with you, Ivan. I know you want to agree with me, you just can't, because you say it's not political, but it really is. But thank you very much indeed. Immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson. Let's get a view from Louise on energy.
As for this £300 off our energy bills, now that would be really fantastic if it happened on the original energy bill as was at the time that they announced it. Because I don't know about you, but I know me and the rest of the world, as far as rest of the country, as far as I'm aware, that £300 wouldn't make any difference at all because our energy bills have gone up way more than £300. £300 ain't going to cut it anymore. It needs to be 50% off our energy bills.
Well, that would be nice, but poor old Ed Miliband will not have that, will it? He keeps saying you're going to save this money on your energy bills, but nobody knows when that's ever going to happen, including him, for heaven's sake. Not even Jurgen can tell us. 0344 499 1000. Mike, I'm 63 and I've never before known such an incompetent government, so much so I think they are dangerous. They are taking us all for fools. Great show. Carry on keeping us sane, says Bev from Framlingham, I should say. Coming up, we're going to speak to Rupert Darwall, author of Green Tyranny. Miliband's back in the news. You know why.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 7:40 very nearly. One from, let's see, Mark in Selby. Never mind Looney Lammy throwing millions of our money at Syria. That's going well, isn't it? And how about giving Italy or Greece cash to help in stopping illegal immigrants from getting into Europe? Well, that's a very good question. We'll get into that in a moment. First, though, let's talk now to Rupert Darwall, author of Green Tyranny. British gas boss has warned Miliband against outrageous energy bill divide. This is basically Ed Miliband's idea that what we should do is charge people with gas boilers more money so they can fund other people to get heat pumps. Completely mad idea. Completely ridiculous. Rupert, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
And I see that Ed Miliband has now taken to speaking to school children about how he's going to save the planet and save them all their energy bills, which I think is a pretty despicable move by him. But, you know, his craziness doesn't really know any bounds, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I think what's interesting is why British Gas are so alarmed by his boiler tax is 1/4 of households are paying their energy bills late.
Yeah.
And there is a crisis building up. There is over 2 billion of late payment of energy debt. And you can't hide what Miliband's trying to do is trying to hide the cost of renewables by putting it onto people's gas bills. But that's just going to raise gas bills and worsen the energy bill crisis.
It's really problematic now, isn't it? Because, you know, we don't really have our own resources. You know, thanks to this government, we're not going to be exploring any more oil and gas in the North Sea. Instead, we're going to buy in from Norway from practically the same field, which seems ludicrous indeed to me. And the self-reliance isn't getting any better, is it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's forgotten in the energy debate is how the previous Conservative government powered past coal. Do you remember that? And Alok Sharma blowing up coal-fired power stations. And with that, we destroyed a lot of our energy security because it happens to be a fact that the cheapest form of electricity generation is coal-fired, and we just blew them up.
Yeah.
And we didn't replace them with new gas. We replaced them with wind and solar. And of course, we have a big problem when there's not enough wind and the sun's not shining. So this is an entirely homemade energy crisis.
Right. And they've even admitted that actually, you know, they're not cutting emissions, they're effectively exporting emissions to other countries, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean that's right. So we're outshoring, offshoring our manufacturing industry to China and other Far East Asian nations where they have a lot, where carbon emissions are a lot higher. So we import it. We also are one of the biggest energy importers. There are two interconnections, and we just suck electricity, often from coal-fired power stations in the case of Belgium, through the interconnectors. So we are in a very risky position.
Yes, and there's no real kind of, I don't know, sort of secondary plan for anything that goes wrong. I mean, I've been told by several people in the business and in the industry that the national grid has come quite close on a couple of occasions already this year to just falling over altogether and blackouts happening.
Yeah, so not only is wind and solar far more expensive, it destabilizes the grid, it makes the grid more fragile, as indeed we saw earlier this year in Spain and Portugal when they had a blackout for very nearly 24 hours. And yes, the rush to renewables and rush to net zero is making the grid more fragile and increasing the likelihood of blackouts.
Indeed. I've got this from Alan in Malaga, who says, we had an unplanned 5-hour power outage yesterday in our village in North Yorkshire, which meant my son couldn't charge his electric car, which meant he couldn't drop us off at the airport 60 miles down the road. He used our diesel car instead. Isn't net zero great? And that is the problem, because last week we had all this madness about electric cars. You know, the government's going to spend £650 million to encourage you to get an electric car. They're going to give you £3,750 of a grant. And then they're going to encourage you to put a little gully into your street so that you can charge have your own charge point coming out of the house. You know, it's literally pie in the sky.
Yes, it is. And what people forget is that it is far more expensive to transport energy as electrons through the grid than it is through pipelines such as we've got the gas pipeline network, or indeed with petrol and diesel. It costs more than 20 times as much to transmit energy as electrons. So we're just piling cost and cost on cost.
Exactly right. And just on the subject of cost, I know it's not necessarily where we were going to go, but I just wanted to ask you about your views on the whole water company saga, because today's the day when this review is reporting back to Steve Reed, the Environment Secretary, who was talking about it a bit yesterday. They're saying get rid of Ofwat, which is probably no bad thing. Probably get rid of every single regulator, I would, because they all don't seem to do very much. But there's a sort of a green portion to the water story, isn't there?
Yeah, I think one of the things is they're talking about having peak pricing for water. And I suppose in theory that's okay if it incentivized water companies to build more reservoirs. And the whole point of having peak pricing is to bring on more supply. But we haven't built any reservoirs for ages. I think, however, on the abolition of Ofwat, I would sort of put a question mark, because the idea of ministers and civil servants being responsible for regulating the water industry actually turns the blood cold. I mean, they will make an absolute orlix of it.
Yeah.
And it does need professionals, and there are problems with Ofwat. But the problems where you've had ministers, Ofwat has been saying, look, don't bail out the water companies. You actually will destroy the system of regulation if water company management and capital providers know they can get off with basically fleecing, sucking enormous amounts of capital out of these companies, and then expecting customers to bail them out.
Yeah.
That can't be the right way to go forward.
No, absolutely right. Rupert, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Rupert Darwell, author of Green Tyranny. I've got this from Mike in Rhodes, who says, Kalimera, Mike. He says there are desalination plants here in Rhodes. Supposedly all bottled water on the island is produced here. All public green areas have sprinklers on every morning, and we're due to hit 42 degrees here this week. No drought, and the locals have a word for it. Summer. Yeah, they do. Also, speaking of roads, I've been sent a rather nice photo for the sticker collage. I'm not sure your map covers roads, though, but it's on a scooter in Rhodes, the home of common sense. Stay calm and listen to talk. Very good, well done. And I've also got another one here, which was spotted by Neil in Leicestershire, and it's the home of common sense on the back of what looks like a van or a lorry of some kind. So very good. Welcome to the world's headquarters of common sense. Gary from Canterbury says, I know you have to speak with these immigration lawyers, but every time you do, I start looking for flights out of here or get onto the estate agents in other countries and look for houses elsewhere. Keep this issue highlighted. Yeah, we're going to do that. And here's one from Phil in Coventry. Great show again. People like Ivan, the immigration lawyer, have absolutely no idea how ordinary people are feeling. We've had enough. It's time to look after our own people. And people are feeling like that. Pete's got a voice note for us.
This illegal immigrant thing where they keep claiming asylum, it should just be the rule is needed. No identification, no entry. No identification, no claim for asylum. No identification, no benefits. No identification, no hotel. No identification, go back where you come from.
That seems fair enough, doesn't it? Because it's straightforward. You just go, sorry, you can't come in. You know, we're going to be putting you over here for about 5 minutes and then we're going to put you on another boat and you're going back the other way. Can't be that difficult, surely. 7:48.
We are lifted upside down and shaken for our 170 odd quid a year for output that is appalling, nothing like it was in terms of quality 20 or 30 years ago, that literally debacle after outrage after scandal, week after week, month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year. The only way that we change this by way of the BBC becoming accountable and indeed the quality of output improving, I mean, so God help us, is that they stand on their own 2 feet and become a subscription-only service.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. This one from Parker. If I was going to recommend a career for any kid entering university nowadays, I'd go for becoming an immigration lawyer. They have decades of work coming their way, all paid for by the taxpayer, with laws that will enable them to represent the same people time after time after time. Yeah, does look a bit like a racket, doesn't it? Let's get a voice note from Phil.
Good morning, Mike. Phil from Nottingham. What a result. I'm going to give up my season ticket that costs me several £100 a year for my football team. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my GP and tell him I'm depressed and get my tickets for free on the NHS. Fantastic.
I mean, I think if you're a Man United fan, you can probably get grounds for compassion on the grounds that they are actually completely useless and have been for the last season or so. Dr. Dean Eggett is here, GP in Doncaster, CEO of Doncaster's local medical committee. You might not have seen this story, Dr. Dean. Very good morning to you. But apparently there's an MP who's a former GP who's called, I think, Chris Ofer or something like that. And he wants to he wants to prescribe football to people to cure their depression. Dr. Simon Ofer, I should say, sorry. And he's got a taker with Dale Vince, our mate Dale Vince down in Gloucester, who owns Forest Green Rovers. Dale Vince is going to go along with it and say, well, they can all come to my place for free and cure themselves from depression. The only problem, of course, with Dale Vince's team is they're pretty depressing to watch, I'm afraid. What do you reckon?
Good morning, Mike. This is the first time I've heard this story, and I am utterly shocked. So I'm from Doncaster. So if I was to watch Doncaster live, there'll be highs and there's going to be lows. It's certainly not going to be ecstatic for me all of the time, and I'm not sure it's going to help me with my depression. And I work with a colleague who is a lifelong Mansfield Town fan who comes in most days and tells me how low he is because of football. So
yes,
watching live football is not necessarily great for the blood pressure and great for the heart and great for mental health unless you're supporting a team who's constantly on the top.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I particularly want to prescribe this to my patients.
No, I don't think so. A couple of really interesting statistics this morning as we were looking through the morning papers. I mean, one coming up, this looming BMA strike, which is going to kick off, I think, on Friday, short of some intervention by Wes Streeting. But the really interesting one for me is the doctors basically have their pay has soared by 91% in the last 8 years. The advertised salary for a doctor was £99,500 in May, up from £52,000 in January 2017. It's not bad, is it?
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? And the mantra from the BMA is that this isn't about pay rises, this is about pay restoration. So it's about making doctors earn what they used to earn in the past, not just on pay, but in all other sorts of luxuries of life, such as lower loans, having accommodation whilst you're working at hospitals and things like that. So being a junior doctor is a really complex thing to understand. So I'm going to make it as simple as possible. So junior doctors are nowadays called resident doctors, but you can be a junior or resident doctor for up to 10 years.
Right.
So these junior doctors aren't always so junior. And it's really those first couple of years where the pay is particularly poor. But as you advance through those years, your pay quickly racks up. So you may find actually you've been a resident junior doctor for 10 years and you could be earning not shy off under £100,000.
Right.
So if we're going to restore pay for these individuals, well, because we're talking about all resident junior doctors, that pay can really skyrocket. And if you're going to add on locum extra shifts on top of that, some of the junior resident doctors are getting paid not too badly, to be fair.
Well, this is the trouble. And one of the things that I notice they do all the time, the BMA, is they don't tell you exactly how much they earn. We had one on last week, and I said to her, well, how much would you mind if I ask you, how much are you on now, and how much of a pay rise did you get the last time around with the 22%? And they never want to talk about absolute numbers. They only want to talk about rates per hour based upon, presumably, them working loads and loads of hours.
Yeah, I think it's because most doctors' pay is reasonably difficult to understand, because you get this basic pay and then you get pay for unsociable hours. So for anything you work in an evening over a weekend, you then get a London waiting on top of that. And then there's also these extra shifts that you may pick up along the way. So the BMA and some resident doctors like to talk about their basic pay. And the basic pay for a first-year doctor is astonishingly poor. It can be as low as just over £15 to £17 an hour. But when you put on those extra waitings, actually it goes up to £22 an hour. And over the year, you're talking about £30,000 odd here for a junior doctor. So for that first year, it's not great pay. Bearing in mind that you might have up to £100,000 student loan, so that's pretty poor. But as we said, 10 years in, you're earning roughly about £70,000 to £80,000, and then on top of that, you may be earning extra from locum shifts too. So the pay starts poor and quickly gets pretty impressive.
And that's always been the way that it's been structured. And presumably, most people, when they go into the business of being a doctor, know that. So they know that in the first year it's not going to be great, but they also know that unlike many other professions, you will be able to make quite significant increases happen over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, you know. So, I mean, unless people are being banged over the top of the head and being told to become doctors, I don't really see what the problem is. You know, they know what they're going into. They know they're going to be working hard. They know they're going to be training for a while. They know they're going to have debt from medical school. So what's the big deal?
Well, I think the argument is that when I qualified as a doctor back in 2005, the pay was pretty much the same. It wasn't too far off. So I was being paid around £15 an hour as well. And it hasn't changed over all of that time. But you're also thinking, does an 18-year-old really know what they're going to get paid and what they're getting themselves in for? So the question that I'm asking here is, for people going into medical school, should they know a little bit more about the career and what they're getting themselves in for beforehand? Because if they don't understand the pay, do they really understand the trauma and the things that they're going to see through their life? Maybe we need to adopt a US-style system where we have a pre-medical aspect to it before medicine, so that you can mature a little bit before you know what you're getting yourself in for.
Well, I would challenge that, frankly. I mean, you know what you're going to do when you're 18 or 19 or 20, and even sometimes be younger than that. I mean, you surely wouldn't have any kind of reason to not understand how the system would work. But according to this piece in the Mail, and these are figures which have been compiled by tracking median salaries in online job adverts, showing that no group of workers has seen a bigger jump than doctors, right? So the average advertised salary for a doctor was $99,500 in May, like I said, up from $52,000 in January 2017, which represents a 21,000 real terms increase, which is huge, and it's bigger than any other business that you can name. Pilots, logistics managers, printers, architects, IT technicians, project managers, you know, even cleaners. Nobody has done as well as doctors have. And I've said this before, you know, there might be people who say they want parity with what they were getting in 2008. They want it to be made up to that level. They might not even have been doctors in 2008.
Yeah, and we're talking about doctors as though they're this homogenous group, and they're not all the same. Again, it's important to remember that you may have this 10-year of being a resident doctor. So this Foundation 1 and Foundation Year 2, the first 2 years of a doctor, are really those doctors who are so very poorly paid and who are struggling financially. You know, there are 70-odd thousand resident union doctors across England, across the UK, sorry. And if we look at those who are on the lowest pay, that's probably about 10% of them, so 7,000. So perhaps if the BMA restructured their chats rather than about all resident doctors, and we talked about this particular cohort to at this bottom end, that argument might make a little bit more sense. But to argue that all resident doctors need a pay increase just doesn't float with me.
No, I think it doesn't float with most of the public either. They're not really getting much support at the moment. It's good to talk to you, Dr. Dean Eggett, as ever. Thank you very much indeed. GP in Doncaster, CEO of Doncaster's local medical committee. He's not too sure either about that business of using football to cure depression. Not sure it's going to happen. Let's get a voice note from Tristan.
Mike, Tristan in Bedford. Like you said, we've hit critical mass with immigration, and we're hitting critical mass with energy. It is utterly ludicrous. And now we've got Ed Miliband lying to children after what he's saying about saving people energy bills. My energy bills have gone up £300 this year, and I'm expecting them to go up again at Christmas. I'm disgusted. I am so just disgusted with this government. I really, really am.
Tristan, thanks very much indeed for letting us know. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with you as well. We got much more coming up. Baroness Claire Fox in the next hour is going to be talking to us. Kate Ferguson, political editor of The Sun on Sunday as well. And Chris Phillips, the former head of National Counter-Terrorism. It's all happening. We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently are going to build in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going around that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth for this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed. Very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the park's hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. What about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner, says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt in Royston, that it's not even their idea. Well, they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Yeah, moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine the scouts to say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour ghost train.
Yeah.
Where everywhere is pitch.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Came up to 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham. For the first time, I can actually see London looking out the window. It's been pretty grim as a start. A lot of rain coming this week by the looks of things. We had quite a bit of a stormy weekend, you'd have to say. But it was sunny by the end of it, so it wasn't all bad. But we'll be keeping an eye on it for you. You just heard in the news there might be some very heavy rainfall over the course of the next few hours. So if you are in a place where they haven't cleared the leaves out of anything, you might want to have a look at the drains, because there's a lot of flooding in various different parts of the world, the world near you, by the way, is what we're talking about. Coming up this morning, we're talking to Baroness Claire Fox, and she's going to be here to tell us what she makes of Nigel Farage's plan to build 30,000 more prison places, not just to house convicts here in this country, but also to deport some of them. And I'm not talking about foreign criminals, but obviously they would be amongst them, but also British criminals, British paedophiles, some of the worst sex criminals, some of the most heinous, violent criminals as well. He wants to send them to countries like El Salvador, where the prison system is a lot less friendly than the one we've got. And a lot of people showing support for that this morning. We're also talking, of course, about what's been going on in Epping, out there at the Bell Hotel. More demonstrations yesterday by an awful lot of the local people there who are concerned that they're being sort of painted as being far right just because they're standing up to the police and they're standing up to the migrant hotel population, the people who are living in the Bell Hotel. Locals say that crime has gone up in the area. Locals say that, you know, it's more dangerous in the area now than it ever used to be. One particular individual has been charged with a sex crime. That has yet to be resolved, but there's people getting very worked up about what's going on. Let's listen to what Sandra's got to say.
Hi Mike, it's Sandra from Essex. It breaks my heart to see what's happening in Epping. I live a few miles away. It's a lovely town, but this is going to happen more and more because people feel that Labour and indeed the Tories have basically reneged on their first duty to protect the citizens of the country.
Sandra, I think a lot of people will have exactly your thoughts in mind, and they'll be telling us exactly how they feel about it. But something's going to have to be done, you know. The government can't just sit by and pretend that it's not happening, which is basically the default position of what Keir Starmer likes to do. He likes to just try and ignore things that don't agree with him. Normally around about this time, he'll be putting out his first tweet of the day. I would bet pretty strongly that it's not going to be about the Bell Hotel in Essex. It'll probably be about fixing the foundations of something or other, which has nothing to do with what anybody is actually concerned about, because what we need to know is what the government is going to do. We've got a clip from June, just a month or so ago, of Rachel Reeves saying she's going to end migrant hotels. She's going to save the money by moving people out of them. Well, so far, that hasn't happened, and it's now nearly August. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk doctor strikes as well, more problems for deportation of migrants, and we're going to ask why Lord Hermes staff racked up £1.24 million in working from home equipment. What's going on exactly? This from Peter in Croydon. How dare Mad Miliband brainwash our kids with net stupid zero? Is it because no sane adult listens to him anymore? So his only way is to plant this rubbish into young minds. What a loser. And one from Richard who says, Mike, I'm a long-suffering QPR fan, just like Peter Blexley. That has been the cause of my depression, not the cure for it. At least they sell burgers and pies. Well, that's the trouble. That's the other bad news. If you go down to Forest Green Rovers to watch the football, not only will it be dire, the food you're eating tastes like cardboard, you know. free cardboard sandwich, courtesy of Dale Vince. Brilliant. Let's talk to Baroness Claire Fox, Director of the Academy of Ideas. The Baroness, very good to see you, Claire.
Good to be with you, Mike.
Nice to talk to you. We've got so many things to discuss this morning because the country, it seems to me, and I don't say this with any joy at all, is really at kind of breaking point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's worrying me is that the headlines around the terrible expose of the Afghan scandal have almost like slightly slipped away. I mean, we've got one story there about potentially somebody being killed in Afghanistan who's the brother of somebody who was brought over. But the scandal itself shouldn't be forgotten because to me it sums it all up. You know, we're in a situation whereby the establishment effectively deceived the British public, made a decision to hide for years the fact that they'd messed up. And it has all sorts of implications, as you know, everything from the issues around immigration, but more, you know, in terms of people being brought here without anyone knowing, a secret a way of bringing people in. But also, you know, think about the implications for press freedom, for any kind of scrutiny in Parliament. Now, the reason I'm saying all that is because there is this sense that things are broken, and on a day-to-day basis, you know, most ordinary people's experience of it is either if you happen to live in around Epping, you've got the problem of the hotel, but it can be just the feeling of criminality out of control. And I think that there's a sort of minor micro ways that you experience it every day. Things just not working. I'm feeling like you've been taken for a mug. And then this bigger picture, which is that we now know that we've been taken for a mug and that they were actually lying explicitly, creating a narrative. That's the way they talked about it. We have to create a narrative to cover this up. And I think that we feel that happens every day, don't we, on everything?
Oh, I think so, yeah. I mean, people are sick to death and they tell me about it all the time, of this particular government, of this particular Prime Minister, and of the fact that they do continually just keep saying things which don't make any sense. I mean, let's have a look at this for a start. This is the first video I'm going to play you. Keir Starmer talking about tackling migration. If you think that this makes any sense, please tell me what it does.
This is a partnership with a purpose. I think it illustrates what our work on the international stage is all about, building the foundations of stability across our continent that make us safer, boost our economy, and deliver change across for our people. It's about delivering results, and that's what we're working towards. In a dangerous world, we do this together. So thank you, Friedrich, for your partnership and your friendship.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for all the fish. I mean, it's got a touch of the Jean-Michel Jarre in the background there, you know, with the oxygen theme. But what's he talking about? You know, the country is in a real dire mess with all of this illegal migration, with the legal stuff as well, with the backlog of asylum seekers. You know, the whole thing is falling down around its ears. And that's what he wants to put out as a message. He's not even said anything about what's happening in Essex.
No, well, I think that, you know, we all know that Keir Starmer feels much happier talking transatlantically to his allies from any other country than the UK, because that's where they can have these chats, as you say, and then come out with this nonsense and this drivel on these films. But the main thing is that he wants to do international deals, but he doesn't want to solve domestic problems. And the international deals are not going to solve the domestic problems.
No.
I mean, if you were any kind of a prime minister, it seems to me that what you would do is you would say, oh my God, we've got an emergency, a real state of emergency. Epping is just the tip of an iceberg here of people feeling very disgruntled. And I think he should have got in the car and driven down to Epping.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what you do. And go and talk to people.
When people, because that's what Boris Johnson would have done. And, you know, Boris had plenty of faults, but what he knew was how the people felt, and he seemed to have a kind of a way of accessing that in some way. But the fact is, what Starmer does is he buries his head in the sand. He invites some foreign leader over that nobody's ever heard of. You know, he had the bleeding Prime Minister of Czechia in the other day. I didn't even know where it was. I had to look it up. You know, didn't realise they were calling themselves Czechia nowadays. And the bottom line is that, you know, the people of this country just don't trust him. He wasn't elected because people liked him. He was elected because he wasn't the Tories, basically. And he's done nothing but screw everything up.
But that's what sums it up. I mean, he was elected because he wasn't the Tories. And even if Boris Johnson had a common touch, we now know that, in fact, while he had his common touch, the Boris wave of immigration was occurring behind our backs.
Yeah.
So, you know, the sense of betrayal from the Conservative Party is then compounded by the gaslighting associated with the Labour government, who consistently talk at us about their plans and are completely tone deaf in terms of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly
So
right.
I just think I think in terms of Epping, because we should talk about that. I mean, here we have a situation in which local people are very angry, but they really want to demonstrate that they've got, what other way have you got? You know, you can't do it during an election at the time. So you've got a problem locally. So you go out and you demonstrate and physically show that you are unhappy about and worried about the hotel and worried about your kids in the local area. And immediately that happens, you get branded far right. You get branded as being some kind of problem. And by the way, don't get me wrong, I'm not naive. I know there are far right people in the country who are bad faith and, you know, annoying, you know, got some pretty grim views. And a few of them will be hanging out there. But that's not what explains what's happening in Epping, which are basically local people furious that their concerns about their kids' safety, about the rise in criminality, about the fact that the hotel is still there, nothing is going to occur, and to get rid of it, and no officials are anywhere to be seen in the local area, and they go out and demonstrate, and then they become the problem. And the police then put out statements saying, we're very disappointed by the criminality happening on the demonstrations. But they're not disappointed about the criminality that's happening from the hotel every day.
Exactly.
That's what they should be sorting out. I mean, if you can send down all that many police to police a local demo, why don't you use the same police officers to check on whether people who are undocumented and stuck, through no fault of their own, stuffed into a local hotel, whether they're committing the crimes that they're allegedly committing?
Well, of course, what we see instead, right, is you see, you know, if you see police officers putting on crash helmets and getting the old, you know, riot shields out, you know, that is going to attract a certain type of person who's going to want to go down there and get stuck into them, right? So that'll be what's happening, and that'll be the predicted event that will happen probably in the next couple of nights, right? Also, what we saw yesterday was some migrants coming back to the hotel, being escorted past the demonstrating mothers and children who were upset by what was going on there by the police.
Yeah. And not a politician in sight. That's the point.
That's the problem.
I mean, you know, and then when you actually find out what they're, you know, we're going to close the hotels down, don't worry about it. We then hear, and partially this is rumour, partly confirmed, that they're going to start effectively requisitioning, using Serco, local homes of multiple occupancy, and putting people in those and paying a huge amount of money to do so. So it always feels as though you're never being taken seriously. Your concerns are being ignored or worked around, and that everything is about resolving problems, not to the satisfaction of the British public, but so that they can't be seen by the British public. They're kind of hidden away in some way.
Right.
And it's, you know, people do say that there's an atmosphere of boiling point. And I do feel as though people are so fed up and they feel so disenfranchised at this point that it's a very dangerous situation to be in, because democracy itself becomes seen as not helpful when every democratic thing that you do, including, by the way, just demonstrating locally, is then demonized, or when your democratic decisions are just ignored.
Exactly right. Have a look at what one of the mothers said yesterday.
We felt a lot of the press were incorrectly reporting us on Friday morning after our protest on Thursday. And so we just wanted to make it really clear that we're strong women, we're mums, we're sisters, we're aunties, we're parents of the area. So we're just here to support. Everybody is really concerned about who is in that hotel. Crime in the area is shocking, and this is a beautiful place to live. And we are all very concerned, as are other people in other towns around the country. We need to stick together, peaceful protest, and the government need to listen to us. They need to listen to real people on the ground, people that work hard and love their country. And we're here to protect that. Our values are very important and we must protect them.
It feels like the beginning of something to me, this, in a way, as well, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly just one thing to indicate. I posted that video and said that she sort of spoke for many, and it was really annoying that she was being, that the local people were being demonised. And immediately I got this kind of flurry of activity on my social media. I mean, I must have been posted on some Antifa site or something like that. Because suddenly they were all saying, do you know she's reform? She's the mother of a reform counsellor and he's a bad and blah, blah, blah. That proves that you're wrong. So in other words, the way that you deal with people is not to listen to what she said very articulately about why people are demonstrating, but to immediately want to take her down and to imply, of course, that reform are far right, which is a ludicrous accusation. And so I think that it feels as though there's a kind of conspiracy against the people. That's what it feels like for people.
And that's what people, and that's exactly what people feel like. And they're sick of it, though. They've had enough. They're not taking it anymore.
Yeah, and you can tell from the people who call into your show, Mike, that there is a sort of sense in which people are not prepared any longer to be treated with such contempt. They don't want to be sneered at. They don't want their problems to be belittled. You know, when I was talking about democracy, one of the things that really drove me mad over the weekend was in the midst of this absolute democratic crisis of these super injunctions being used, as I say, to deceive even the home of democracy, Parliament, and the British public around Afghanistan. Then they say we're going to introduce votes for 16 and 17-year-olds. Now, I'm not talking about that in particular. The justification was we do what we say in our manifesto. We're the real Democrats. We promise to do this and we'll deliver. So the one thing they're going to deliver, or the kind of things that they say it's in our manifesto we're going to deliver, are absolutely daft, numpty ideas like lowering the voting age. At the very, which is the least of the issues that we face as a country, but real democratic accountability, where you actually do something about things which are getting to the point of an emergency, like the hotel crisis, like the immigration crisis. They are just not doing anything. And I think that they're just talking it down the whole time. And I am very concerned that what's happening is that if you've got a pressure cooker atmosphere, as we have at the moment, that things blow open. You cannot keep suppressing the concerns of ordinary people and making out that they are the problem when they try and react to it.
And you can't keep ignoring it. I mean, look at that story from last year that was, for me, one of the most important bits of the Afghan story. And it was the revelation that back in September of last year, there was a ministerial document which was passed around the cabinet, which basically declared that all of the places where there was unrest in the summer after Southport had all been places where more Afghan residents from Afghanistan had been placed in hotels and in houses in all of those areas where there was trouble.
Exactly. So that's you see, the thing that's really fascinating about that story was they very consciously thought, oh, well, we can't tell people now. We can't reveal it now because that might exacerbate the tensions that we have in the local areas. Now, just consider the fact that they had a conversation about how to manage the British population. That was what was seen to be the problem. Now, what drove me mad in the House of Lords the other day, I wasn't able to be at the full debate. Guess why? On Afghanistan, because I was at another debate about the fact that they're sneaking through a definition of Islamophobia. So no, can't keep up with all the scandals that are going on. But anyway, I heard the end of the debate on Afghanistan, and the minister there, the Labour minister, was basically saying, effectively, anyone who challenges this is betraying those Afghans who actually supported British soldiers, who bravely supported us. And it's such a cheek to do that, because what they're trying to do is then, even now, even with the revelations, they're trying to silence any dissent. They're basically saying anyone who makes too big a fuss about this scandal is actually is forgetting that those people put themselves on the line. We all know, because we're not idiots, and because actually it's been revealed that the people who they had on that list were not the brave people who were helping the British Army at all. Some of them might have been. But the reason they suppressed the information, as you say, was to manage the British population. The people they thought were the problem were not the Afghans that they brought in secretly on a mission, but the British public who they didn't trust to admit that they'd messed up or that they were now doing a secret operation bringing people into this country.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's disgraceful.
It's unforgivable. It really is completely unforgivable. And people say to me, oh, I wrote a piece for The Sun on it last week, and people were like, oh, well, you're blaming Labour for it now. I'm like, yeah, because Labour actually had the injunction running for longer than the Tories did. And instead of getting in and blowing the gaff on it and saying, look, this has happened, it's absolutely disgraceful, we're going to have to fix it, and this is what we're going to do, they continued the lie. And not only that, they continued to lie through the summer when they talked about, the far-right thugs, and they talked about, we will not stand for any kind of, anti-immigrant feeling, knowing that they were flooding the country with tens of thousands of Afghans who we didn't know were here.
Well, listen, I'm an equal opportunities blamer on this one.
Me too.
Both of them.
No, I'm absolutely with you. I blame both of them.
Yeah. But I think that you're right to indicate that Labour had an opportunity when they came in to actually, we know that they've revealed things like, we now know that there's a, £19 billion black hole.
Yeah.
Which was, they said, we've come into power and look what we've discovered. So actually they would have been within their rights to have said, we've come into power and we, as a Labour government, shockingly are going to reveal what the Conservative government did to cover up this scandal in Afghanistan. But they didn't do that, did they? In other words, they chose to reveal something economically, which we're all a bit dodgy about, concerned about whether it's true anyway, about the money.
Yeah.
But they didn't reveal what is a much more serious scandal. And they could have earned the trust of the British public if they'd said, we've realised that this super injunction was taken out. We're now in a position where we can tell you, because we, unlike the previous government, trust you, the British public. Instead, they doubled down.
Yeah.
And they made it about, even more explicitly, as you say, the fact that there was the riots going on. They thought, this is going to make things a million times worse. And the reason why they think that is because they know that in the end, it is an absolute outrage that people were brought into this country behind the backs of even Parliament and dumped into local areas, and nobody knew who they were.
I know. Absolutely incredible. Incredible stuff. Baroness Claire Fox, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Director of the Academy of Ideas. We were going to talk about a whole load of stuff, but, these stories are so big now. They're so, incredibly important that we will be talking about all manner of other stories as well through the course of this week. But some stories just aren't going away because they need to be fixed. They need to be sorted. And if you've got a story that's affected you or your family and you think we should know about it or investigate it further, you can email us. We've got a special email now, tips@talk.tv. That's tips@talk.tv. Let's get a voice note from Brian.
Morning, Mike. Brian from Southend. Oh, God, Monday morning. Why is it every Monday I just feel so depressed when I turn your radio on? Not because of you, but because of the stories that come out of it. And what a disgrace that Ed Millipede talking to that young lad who asked a simple question. And what people have got to worry about is the way Ed Miliband made it a political sort of point. And this is what we've got to worry about now that Labour have brought the voting age to 16, because all in school, this is the way that Labour are going to address kids' questions, or the teachers, the left-wing teachers, are going to address their questions. And that is frightening.
Yeah, it really is frightening. Brian, thanks very much indeed for that. An awful lot of people concerned as well about the fact that, now that we are heading into this long, hot summer, although it doesn't look that hot out there at the moment, suddenly Parliament has dissolved itself, They've all gone off for the summer holidays. And Kate Ferguson's coming up next. She's, of course, the political editor of The Sun on Sunday. She's got a piece in The Sun this morning saying that basically a 3 hours fail for Keir Starmer, Reeves, recession, rebels, and as the parliamentarians go off on their holes. Maybe it's not the greatest idea they've ever had. Maybe they should stay and sort the country out. We'll talk to Kate after this.
We need to make sure there is more respect on our streets. We need to make sure there's less litter, less crime. All these things are of course a concern, and we need to make sure we have a proper plan to tackle all that.
So what would your plan be to tackle that? What would your plan be? Would you put even more police on the streets? Would you allocate money for it? Because a lot of people feel there just is a lack of policy from the Conservatives at the moment, that you're flailing around without a plan.
I don't think that's right at all. We will have a plan for that. We're working on that right now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 29 minutes past 8. Goodness me, the time is flying. Unbelievable stuff, isn't it? We've got Kate Ferguson coming up next. Politically goes at The Sun on Sunday. She's got a big column in The Sun today in which she's talking about the end-of-term report for Keir Starmer. I'm afraid he only gets 5 out of 10. Must try harder, says Kate, and I think she's absolutely spot on. She says the economy's shrinking, his popularity's plummeting, and his pesky backbenchers are busy rebelling. The only thing on the up in Britain is illegal immigration and crime. I mean, sounds like that. Doesn't sound like a great time to go on holiday at all, does it? Kate, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. Great column this morning. I mean, the one thing that made me think about everything that's going on from the Essex, the Epping Forest problem with the Bell Hotel, to the problems with, you know, various trade deals, international visits, all the rest of it. It's not a great time to be kind of cutting up for the summer, is it, for Parliament? I mean, the problems of this country are huge now, and they're all, you know, disappearing off to do something else.
Yeah, Parliament breaks up on Tuesday, tomorrow. So, yeah, they're going to have a long summer ahead of them. It's always very tricky when Parliament breaks up, because what happens in the summer every year at the moment, you see crime rocketing, and you're starting to see Reform and Nigel Farage. They're going to be campaigning on that all summer, twisting the knife into Labour and Keir Starmer. But also the boats crisis always gets worse in those kind of hot, calm months of August. So often it's kind of those supposedly quiet months of August, which is the biggest headache for Number 10.
Yeah, and we've seen Nigel Farage this morning, big piece in The Sun, talking about his plan for law and order, his plan for justice, his plan for the prisons. And, you know, a lot of people this morning telling me they like the sound of it. They're all going, yeah, let's get tougher on crime. You know, let's send some of these horrible, ghastly criminals to some foreign hellhole and let them suffer the consequences.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think this is probably going to be one of the biggest issues at the next general election. There's this sense in this country that it's not fair, that criminals are getting away with it. Everything from kind of supposedly low-level crime. So you see all those images of shoplifters. I mean, you don't have to be in kind of a Tesco or a Lidl very long before you see somebody walk in and scoop stuff off the shelves like it's supermarket sweep. So all the way down from that quite supposedly low-level crime, but the kind of crime that is insidious and just makes us feel that people are playing by the same rules, and that's where you get a lot of fury from, I think.
Yeah.
But also, we've obviously seen the early prison release scheme as we run out of jail places. But that means that genuine, you know, real offenders, sometimes violent offenders who have been locked up, are now walking free. So I think this is very, very fertile territory for Nigel Farage.
It is, and particularly when you see stories like the one at the weekend about how many of these illegal migrants are now involved in crime and cases that are being brought against them for all manner of things, from theft to sexual assault to rape. We see what's happening, as I say, in Epping, in Essex, and it feels like that's the beginning of some form of sort of, you know, people's rebellion almost.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you saw the riots last year. You're starting to see these protests this year again. if the government isn't able to be transparent about how they're dealing with criminals and get a grip and for it to feel fair, then you will start seeing more and more of these protests, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And in terms of your sort of general 5 out of 10 points for Keir Starmer, I mean, he has been incredibly bad, hasn't he? I mean, I've said this to you before, and I've said it to many of your colleagues at the paper as well. You know, we all knew that Labour might do some things that we wouldn't perhaps want them to do, but we didn't think they'd be this incompetent, and he has really proven himself to be pretty incompetent.
Yeah, so in the column, I kind of play with this idea that it's end of school, end of year, and he's got his report card. I mean, it's been a really rough year for Keir Starmer and Labour. I think everyone's been shocked at how little prepared they seem for government. They thought they were over-prepared, but actually it felt like once they got into number 10, they didn't really have much of an agenda.
Yeah.
I tell Keir he needs to go away over the summer and come back. What I would like to see them do this September is actually spell out to us some big reforms that they want to do in this country, get our agreement for it, make the big cases for it. Because I think that was the problem with Keir Starmer and the welfare rebels. You know, he didn't really make the case for welfare reform. So then it ended up blowing up in his face. But he's got this huge majority. Like it or not, voters gave him a huge majority a year ago. He needs to do something with it. He needs to drag the country out of its paralysis and do something with that majority. Otherwise, next time, I think voters will go elsewhere.
But he just kind of spends a lot of his time hiding out, doesn't he? And inviting, you know, sort of, I'm not going to call the German leader obscure, but certainly Czechia's leader was a bit of a surprise when I was going, oh, who's this guy? And what is Czechia? You know, I mean, it's kind of, he keeps kind of finding new people to invite to Downing Street. I think he's got the Indian Prime Minister coming over soon, and he loves to do all that, but it doesn't help him at home, really. People aren't buying this, you know, elder statesman idea.
Well, the thing that all Prime Ministers need to remember, and Keir Starmer needs to remember, is that there's not really any vote in being the kind of global statesman or going off abroad. There just isn't. Britain's facing a lot of basic bread and butter issues here at home. The economy is now shrinking. As you talk about, crime is perceived to be getting out of control, illegal immigration. These are the big issues that will define how people vote and what they think of the government. And while obviously there's an element of the international stage that every Prime Minister needs to deal with and interact with, Keir has to be very careful that he doesn't seem to be hiding out there, only doing the stuff he enjoys. He needs to get back to Britain and grasp these really quite thorny nettles of reform.
Yeah, absolutely right. And he's up before a committee, I understand, this afternoon, where he's going to get quizzed for a couple of hours. He's not going to enjoy that, is he?
This is the liaison committee, which is lots of heads of select committee chairs grilling him. It's interesting because that welfare rebellion that erupted about a month ago, that was really led by a bunch of Labour select committee chairs. So you're starting to see Keir Starmer be challenged by his own senior backbenchers. You'll see that again today. So it's going to be a lot of Labour voices interrogating him rather than Tory or Reform.
Yeah, which may be even more dangerous than because he has to answer them in a different way than he would otherwise somebody who he regarded as his enemy, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he can't just dismiss these questions as kind of gripes of former kind of has-been Tories. These are kind of big, senior, influential, often female select committee chairs interrogating him. So that'll be tough for him today, definitely.
What about a reshuffle? Anything in the summer? We've been promised maybe something would happen over the summer months. What do you think?
I don't think it will happen in the summer. I mean, we've been waiting for this Keir Starmer reshuffle. I did think that after the rebellion, he was a bit too weak to reshuffle his cabinet. Yeah. So I suspect we're going to see these rumours again September. If it doesn't happen in September, you're looking maybe first week of January next year. But, I mean,
God, will he still be here?
But I mean, people are talking about this ministerial reshuffle. I think we'll certainly get one of those down the kind of lower levels of the ministerial rung. The big question is, can Keir Starmer shuffle his actual cabinet? You know, those politicians we may actually have heard of.
Yes.
Or is he actually a bit too weak to do that?
Yeah, I think you might be right. Kate, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant column. Kate Ferguson, political editor at The Sun on Sunday. Paul in Fife says this morning, Mike, I keep hearing endless arguments about these illegals and ECHR preventing us sending them back to their own countries or to France. I'm sorry, it's all codswallop. Bottom line is, if I flew from Glasgow to Paris and I didn't have my passport, I would be sent back home on the next available plane. These people arrive here from France, send them back to France, regardless of the ECHR or what the French say. What exactly will they do about it? We saved their backsides from the Nazis, for heaven's sake. enough is enough. Well, that's a phrase we're going to hear a lot, I think, over the coming weeks. Carl in Shrewsbury says, I guess that guy Ivan, the lawyer, doesn't live in an area that is affected by migration, both legal and illegal. How he can sit there and say, for example, migrants can't use the NHS is ludicrous. It's an irrefutable fact that they do. The guy's a clown. Great show, as always. Yeah, we've got plenty more for you between now and 10 o'clock. Coming up next, we're going to be speaking to Hamish de Bretton-Gordon about what's going on with the latest leaks in Afghanistan. And Chris Phillips, former head of National Counter-Terrorism, is going to be here because a poll says most Brits think that crime is completely and utterly out of control. It's all coming next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:39. This from Paddy in Colston. It says, Mike, Raily Afghanis coming in with 150 family members. That is absolute madness. Well, you can say that again. It is absolutely incredible what's been going on. One here from Trev in Milton Keynes. I was wondering, do you think if I identify as an Afghan, I can get on the claim bandwagon? I'm sure one of the lefty lawyers will put together a strong case and one of the lefty judges will find in my favour. Well, I mean, certainly I think there's going to be an awful lot of claims being made by an awful lot of slippery lawyers who can see pound notes literally falling out of their pockets because they're going to be literally queuing up to sue the government after this epic, complete and utter disaster with the Afghan data leak. Let's talk to Chris Phillips, though, former head of National Counter-Terrorism Security Office, because a poll in the Sun at the weekend would lead us to believe that most Brits think crime is out of control. They don't trust the government or the police to actually keep them safe. Some of the figures here are absolutely stunning, and we'll bring them to you right now. Let's talk, though, to Chris now. Chris, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I don't think anyone who's worked and or lived around the streets of Britain at the moment would disagree with this poll, would they? I mean, Sir Keir Starmer's team apparently might be slightly surprised by the scale of it, but basically Nigel Farage is more trusted than the Prime Minister or Kemi Bates, not on almost every single issue about tackling crime, and he's launched himself this morning with a kind of a to-do list on certainly on finding more prison places and punishing people in prisons much more harshly.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. Well, we mustn't fool ourselves into thinking that the UK, London in particular, was ever crime-free. I mean, we you know, there's always been a lot of crime in around cities across the world, particularly London and Manchester.
It's definitely worse now than it's been for a long time.
But yeah, it's not necessarily the amount of crime; it's the type of crime.
Yeah.
It's the low-level crime that we're seeing now that we never saw before. It's the willful disrespect of shops and people and the violence on the streets that we never really had in any great numbers before, and I think that's what scares people. And it's been caused, Mike. Let's not you know, society has made the police pretty much incapable of dealing with this kind of crime, taken away the signs of security that we all want, like police stations, officers on the street walking around, you know, at least having someone to report crime to would it's all gone, and this is something that's happened over the last 20 years.
Yeah, but I mean, it has got particularly bad just in the last couple of years. Just I speak just as a regular Londoner. You know, you see it more now, and you're right. I mean, you know, it's the type of crime that's different. You know, you see more cases of people, you know, smashing up cars, for example. You see, you know, a lot of social media is responsible for this as well, I suppose. But
yeah, you're right.
I mean, I've had my phone nicked. I know plenty of people who've also had their phones nicked. You see people getting attacked in the street. You see people getting sort of steamed, as we used to call it in New York. You know, it seems as though the police are just not really able to cope with it.
Well, they're not, because the simple fact is we've taken away the numbers of police officers. Social media, I think you make a big point there, actually, Mike, that social media, and, you know, we all see the same incidents over and over again. These things some of them may have happened in the past, but we didn't see them because they weren't filmed.
Yeah.
But the key point is the whole criminal justice system is shot. We need to invest in it. Unfortunately, the government have got lots of things they want to spend money on, but you know, without adequate policing, without police stations, without a decent criminal justice system and prison places, our society starts to fall apart, because policing is the glue that holds everything together. You can't run a business if you're going to get robbed every week. You know, these things, policing is such an important part of society, and we've underinvested in it.
Yeah, I mean, according to this survey you've got, of the following crimes, which do you think are currently under control or out of control? Violent crime, 60% out of control. Knife crime, 74% out of control. Theft, 70% out of control. Do you think Britain is becoming a lawless country? Yes. Practically half the people they asked said that they thought it was. And I guess to a large extent as well, it does depend where you live, and there are some parts of the country which are less affected, I suppose, by what we perceive to be this crime wave. But there's just a sense that there's a lot of lawlessness out there, and a lot of particularly young offenders who don't really care whether they get caught or not.
Yeah, no respect for the law, no fear of the law, and without that fear and respect, there are some people who will tip over the edge and do mad things. But you know, the social media does play a big part, because fear of crime has always been a big problem, and an unreasonable fear of crime sometimes. You know, we see these things happening in, you know, nowadays it seems to be sword fighting, you know, in some of our towns, which would never have been seen before and probably never happened so much.
Well, I remember last year we were reporting on a sort of a machete fight that took place down in Southend, and people were going, well, when did that happen? And then we started talking to people in Southend, and they went, well, you know what, it's actually started happening quite a lot. Every weekend now we see, I think it was last summer, you know, these kind of kids arriving from London on the train, and by the time it gets to sort of 9, 10 o'clock at night, they're all out on the streets trying to slash each other with machetes. It's bizarre.
Yeah, and if you don't fear the consequences, then you know, you're more likely to have these things happening. And let's be quite frank, you know, if I was a youngster growing up in London now, I'd be scared, actually. And, you know, you can understand why people are carrying knives, because they think that it's going to make them safer. It doesn't. It makes them far less safe. But people are carrying knives in defence, to defend themselves from others. And this is just a spiral that goes out of control.
Yeah.
And the only way to deal with this, unfortunately, is to strengthen the police, give the police more numbers, to make sure that there are court places and prison places for swift justice, so that if people do commit, they know that they will likely go to court, there will likely be bad consequences for them, and society will feel safer as a result.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that somebody can get to grips with it soon before it completely spirals out of control. But good to talk to you. Chris Phillips, thank you very much indeed, former head of National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. One here from Stuart, who says, Mike, don't you just get the feeling that Labour, the Tories and the Liberals don't have 1 ounce of patriotism inside them, and that when they are questioned, they just give a wishy-washy answer as though we have no right to ask them anything, but we should still vote for them? Oh, I think they're very uncomfortable Absolutely. One from Jenny in North Wales. She said, Mike, now the schools have broken up, the children are more at risk. There will be some kids more at risk as some parents will have to work and advise kids to stay safe, etc. Other kids might be thinking they are safe, and lucky ones will have parents not working, play dates, safe homes, etc. Yeah, make a good point. This is the first week, really, of the proper summer school holidays. And so for an awful lot of parents, you know, it's either a choice between, you know, looking after the kids and not working, or trying to find some way to pay for childcare, trying to find some way to take the kids with you to work or something like that, because that's the problem. Ewell says this on the Afghan data breach: if the secret importing of Afghan migrants had been reported before the general election, the Tories would have been wiped out. If Labour had revealed it before the local elections, the Tories would have been wiped out and Labour would have lost council seats. This was election interference by the state. Interesting. And one from Dean in Oxford, who says, Ed the Red going around telling kids lies and at the same time Nigel Farage telling people the truth. It's a great time to be alive. Yeah, I know what you mean. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, we're going to speak about the state of that SAS data leak. Hamish de Bretton Gordon, OBE, former British Army Colonel, is going to join us because it turns out that some members of the SAS might have been identified in a new breach compared to on top of the Afghan breach from last week. We'll bring you that coming up next.
I think that, unfortunately, what we're seeing is the result of a lot of brainwashing that's happened, in particular, since October the 7th. These people live in a world in which a real-life genocide is going on in Gaza, in their view, akin to the Holocaust or the Rwandan genocide. That's obviously untrue, but that's what they believe. And they believe that Britain is complicit in that, again, untrue. But if you really believe those things with all your heart, then you're going to want to do everything you can to disrupt it, and that's what we're seeing at the Royal Opera House.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 10 minutes to 9. We're almost into the final hour of the show already. Joanna from Salisbury says, Mike, maybe Parliament should have their summer holidays cancelled like they did in the war years. After all, we are in a war footing. Well, that's what we keep being told by Keir Starmer. He's put his first tweet out of the day, by the way, as I like to call it, the first lie of the day. And here's what it says. We are fixing Britain's broken water industry, tackling pollution and backing customers. No more neglect, no more excuses. We promise change, we're delivering it. I mean, again, it doesn't really say much, doesn't really talk to me. I don't understand what he's changing. No more neglect, I don't know what that means. I don't know whether they're going to be helping and backing customers. What does that mean? Backing customers to do what? To pay less money? Backing customers to get rebates from these companies? Backing customers when they complain about the fact that they had a water shortage in the summer because the water company couldn't fix the leaks? Don't know. But speaking of leaks, let's talk to Hamish de Bretton Gordon, OBE, former British Army Colonel. Obviously not that kind of leak. This is a very different kind of leak. We're still seeing the fallout, basically, from what we found out last week, almost a week ago now, just over a week ago, from John Healey, the Secretary of State for Defence. Apparently, the day after the Afghan super injunction was exposed, there were even more identities possibly leaked in a new breach, and this was all to do with the SAS. Hamish, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
This seems to have been a monumental screw-up, for want of a better phrase, but it's not over yet, is it?
Well, certainly, I think there are two things we're talking about here. The super injunction that was lifted last week, which was protecting the names of many special forces, SAS, SBS operatives, as well as security service, MI6. And presumably the judge and the government felt that the super injunction had done its job, and those people had sort of 2 years to make sure that they were secure, move jobs or whatever. I think the latest one you're talking about is in the Grenadier Guards regimental magazine, and I have some sympathy for this. These magazines, and my own regiment has exactly the same, are very much in-house. And where soldiers and officers are posted are often there so that colleagues know where they are. They're not intended to go worldwide. However, I expect that there is probably a colonel, an even older colonel than me, probably running these magazines, who perhaps doesn't realise now that it's virtually impossible for these things to stay in-house. And the final bit on this, Mike, I think that everybody is now beginning to learn what Mod A block means, which is what was put in the Grenadier Guards magazine against these officers. And Mod A block is a sort of acronym covering a wide variety of special forces. So it doesn't actually mean these people are blades, as we call them, frontline operatives, because the special forces need a whole bunch of people supporting them. So I think it's really unfortunate, but I can see where it is. But also these magazines will be quite legacy. They'll be reporting things that sort of happened, last year, rather than actually what's happening at this very moment.
Yeah, but I mean, surely what it points to, though, is that there's far too much information generally available to too many people, it would seem, in terms of sensitive military information about individual operatives if they work for the SAS, or, I mean, it shouldn't be accessible information for anybody to see, really, should it?
No, you're absolutely right. And I think, we are catching up very quickly. And when you allied to the fact, I think it was last week, that that GCHQ and the National Security Cyber Agency said that we were under daily attack from the Russians, from cyber attacks. This sort of stuff is absolutely grist to their mill. And, we need to get much better at this. Electronically, it's very difficult to hide these days. And we've got key operators in the Special Forces and the Security Service who do so much good work for us, protecting us here at home, that we need to make sure that they are protected in all guises, including electronically, and we must improve our operating procedures to make sure we don't give any sort of open goals to the Russians and others.
Yeah, because the head of the army, General Sir Rolly Walker, apparently ordered this inquiry after it emerged details of Special Forces soldiers recruited from Grenadier Guards had been publicly available online for a decade. I mean, that sounds like gross negligence to me.
Well, absolutely. And as I explained, these in-house magazines, I think people never realised, and certainly the people who were publishing them and putting together never realised, the depths and the ease of other people looking into them. So, yeah, I absolutely agree. This is something that's been going on far too long, and by people probably not really trained or understanding exactly what they're doing. And the key thing going forward is we make sure that we tighten things up and don't do this sort of activity. And these magazines traditionally were just, hard copy. It's only recently, I expect, that they've gone online.
Yeah, right. But, I mean, you have to ask the question, what else is out there for people to access if they need to look for it?
Well, as you'll know as well as I do, Mike, the amount of information open source around is phenomenal. In fact, I'm sure the security services will tell you they get more of their intelligence from open source data on the internet and around the place. It is very, very difficult to keep things secret these days. But I think it's a it's a real reminder to all those people in the security world and the defence world how easy it is for people to access our systems, and they've got to be tightened up. And I think it's, we've got to look forward here and make sure that we do much better in future and tighten things up so that these sort of events that, individually, they're not so serious. But when you put them all together, you are providing potential bad actors and people who do us harm, real information that is a danger to our security.
Yeah, absolutely right. Hamish, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Hamish de Bretton Gordon, OBE, former British Army Colonel. One here from Don in Chelmsford. He says, "Morning, Mike. Starmer's messages to the nation are reminiscent of Comical Ali during the Iraq War. He used to say that Iraq were winning while American tanks were in the background. Now we have Comical Keir with the UK falling to bits around him." That's very good, actually. I quite like that. Peter Mole says, "Water company, soon it will be cleaner to drink out of a puddle with the way that it's all going." Well, this is the thing. My son is soon to get his citizenship in the USA, and I may follow him, says Liz in Southampton. There's nothing left of worth, no faith, no values, no respect in the UK. Love you all at Talk. It is worrying, isn't it? And one from Linda in Deal. "I thoroughly agree with Claire Fox. Police protect the illegals and accuse concerned residents of inciting violence. Police and government just have contempt for the British population, just swan off to their holiday homes while we suffer a national emergency." Well, you would say, wouldn't you, that under the circumstances right now, for example, when the British country is in such a state, a parlous state, we keep being told, today we're being told the water business in this country is broken. We've been told that the economy is broken. We've been told the prison system's broken, the justice is broken, that the border control system is broken, immigration is broken. If it's all broken, why are they all going on holiday? Hey? Shouldn't they be staying around to fix it? Let's get a voice note from Matt.
Matt in Hove here. Just a quick note on this claim that Labour has saved 30% on hotel fees for migrants. Okay, well, maybe that's right. So, just an example, Thursday, Friday, Saturday last week, 970 illegal migrants came over. Fine. Bang them in one hotel, £3 million a month. Fine. Okay, take them out of the hotel and put them in private rental accommodation at £2 million a month. Brilliant. You've saved a third. But they're now in houses, in the streets, in the communities, still with nothing to do, still committing crime. That's even worse than the hotels. You might as well leave them in there. The country is going down the toilet anyway, and we're skint. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous to take them out of the hotels and put them in amongst the residents of all the local streets. It's carnage.
It is carnage. And what do you think is going to happen to the hotel? They're not going to give the hotel back to ordinary people travelling up and down the country or people who want to stop over for the night. They're going to put more migrants in. So you just end up with more migrants. On the subject of football and depression, this from Sarah. "Mike, what do I get to watch if I don't like football? Perhaps I can get my TV licence on the National Health and watch that all day." Yeah, maybe. You never know. This is Talk. We'll be back after this. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humsey Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar. Hello, and lady. Unfortunately, it catches on its Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham. It's Monday, of course. It is July the 21st. It's not quite the last Monday in July, but we're getting up there. We're getting into the heat of summer. And so, naturally, what's happened? Oh, yeah. The latest Hosepipe ban has come into force in the last few minutes. Southern Waters imposing restrictions across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight? What about that big body of water between Southampton and Portsmouth in the Isle of Wight? You know, that bit, the Solent? Whatever it is, nearly 1 million customers are affected. Meanwhile, Catherine has sent me this from Yorkshire, a picture that she's taken in her own street with what can only be described as a fountain of water coming out the middle of the road because obviously there's some massive water leak. I think there's another water leak going on somewhere in London. Today's the day, of course, that the Minister for Environment, who is, or the Secretary of State, I should say, for Environment, Steve Reed, is going to be responding to the Water Business Review. Apparently the water business in this country is broken, and of course Keir Starmer's going to fix it, because that's what he does, fixing the foundations. We're going to speak to Robbie Moore MP, Shadow Minister for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. I mean, everybody blames the Tories for the water companies being rubbish. They certainly are rubbish. I think they're going to do away with Ofwat, the regulator, as well. Not quite sure whether that's going to be a good idea or not. Seems like a good idea. Isabel Oakeshot's going to be talking to us as well. We've been speaking an awful lot this morning about Nigel Farage. He wants to build 30,000 more prison places. He's on the front pages talking about his new crime initiatives. He also wants to send an awful lot of terribly bad criminals, nasty, ghastly paedophiles and other predators and beasts. He wants to send them all to somewhere like El Salvador. He says he can do a deal with a foreign government so that they will take some of our worst criminals and they'll put them up in some of the worst prisons in the world, and they won't be doing that again anytime soon. Well, I think that's a great idea, and a lot of you are very much in support of that. Not just that, but also building more prison space in this country to house even more of the criminals, because we're simply not locking enough people up. A lot of you have got things to say about the coming doctor strike as well. That's kicking off on Friday, unless it's somehow stopped by West Streeting offering the doctors a load of money. But it turns out they've had about a 91% pay rise since 8 years ago. Absolutely unbelievable. Also, we'll talk a bit about the migrant business as well. There's an Afghan migrant of the day who can't be deported because nobody's sure where he comes from. First he said he was from Iran. He couldn't be deported there. Then they said he was from Afghanistan. He couldn't be deported there because he was from Iran. Now, they're not saying where he's from, they just think he can stay here. 14 years this has been going on, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, you've got the double-dipping migrants in Ireland, people who come here to claim asylum and then go to Ireland, this is a Sunday Times investigation, and claim for asylum there as well. And not only do they get the benefit of being in two places every single week, because they can travel backwards and forwards, they get benefits in both places as well. Absolutely extraordinary. Finally, Dale Vince offering football as a cure for depression. Sounds like a good idea when you hear about the football team. It's his one, Forest Green Rovers. Absolutely dreadful. We'll try and speak to Dale. This is Talk. Steve says this: many of these junior doctors demanding pay restoration to 2009 levels were still at school then, and they know the pay levels when they start training. I'd ask what their fantastic BMA union was doing, allowing doctors' pay to drop so far behind for years and doing sod all about it until Labour got back in. And one here from Stuart who says, surely the whole country would like to pay restorations. If there is anyone who shouldn't be struggling, it's junior doctors on £75,000 a year. Absolutely right. They never mention that, do they? They just mention how much they get paid by the hour. Let's talk now to Robbie Moore, MP, Shadow Minister for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Robbie, very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning.
Good to see you. The Labour government says that the water business is broken in this country, and I think the inference is that they think you broke it. Did you?
No, well look, what we've seen is a very detailed report that's been announced today, the Cunliffe Review, with 88 recommendations, of which a key recommendation in that is bringing all of those regulators together, whether it's Ofwat, the Environment Agency, those within Natural England that have the ability to focus on water quality to account under one single regulator. Look, we cautiously welcome that announcement. Why cautiously? Because yet we don't know the detail. We don't know the framework in which those regulators will sit under. and we want to make sure that there is a huge amount of investment that can still continue into our water sector, so we need to reassure investors, but also make sure that our water quality is significantly enhanced within our rivers, lakes and streams, and that we get the right level of infrastructure improvement that all of those bill payers want to see.
Yeah, but this is the same story we've heard for years, isn't it? You know, we want to see infrastructure improvement, we want to see the leaks stopping, we want to see, you know, shareholders doing okay, but also prices coming down. You know, it's been like this for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, which is why it's been very important to understand the absolute issue of the scale of the problem. When we inherited government back in 2010, only 7% of storm overflows, where sewage was being discharged into our rivers, lakes and seas, was monitored. We raised that monitoring up to 100% by 2023. We brought out a huge raft of investigations, quadrupling the amount of investigations that could take place, and also gave our regulators more power to hold water companies, the polluters, to account through banning our water company bosses' bonuses, the like. What is very frustrating is the lack of political willpower we are now seeing from Steve Reed, the Secretary of State, who only yesterday announced a very lacklustre target of reducing sewage discharge by only 50% by 2030. Crikey, that is a lesser target than what we signed up to with our water companies back in 2023. The Times are even reporting that Steve Reed's lacklustre approach is anticipated to result in an additional 20,000 sewage spills over and above what we had already got sign off with by the water companies back in 2023. So my worry is we've had a very detailed report that has come through, but a Secretary of State in Steve Reed that has got a lacklustre approach in how to implement not only the recommendations but actually the political direction and willpower to hold our regulator and our water companies to account.
Yeah, it's a whole mess, but as I say, it hasn't really been fixed for years and years and years and years. I mean, I'm not going to start throwing blame around, but everybody knows you guys were in charge for 14 years. Before that, it was Labour for sort of 13 years. Nobody really, since the beginning of this century, I don't think, has ever really got to grips with why the water business in this country is so hopeless, you know? I mean, I've always wondered how you managed to make Thames Water make a £1.65 billion loss this year. You know, the stuff falls for free from the sky. We're surrounded by it, and yet they can't make it work.
Yeah, which is why back in 2023 we linked dividends to environmental performance. We absolutely committed to banning water company bosses' bonuses for those that had been discharging sewage into our rivers, lakes and streams, wanting to make sure that the regulators had the power that they were asking for to be able to utilise to hold those polluters to account. But it comes back to the point that we needed to understand the scale of the challenge. So monitoring where sewage discharge was taking place was crucial in that process. Labour may refer to, as Steve Reed did literally just yesterday, of wanting to get our rivers, lakes and streams back to the purity that we once knew. But that was under Blair and Brown and the purity of only having sewage discharge monitored at 7%. How on earth can Labour reference previous administrations under their watch when they in government didn't get to grips on this issue?
Right.
So what I am coming back to is all of those recommendations that we brought out and those solid commitments that were brought out in 2023. We have seen no further real tough action in the last 12 months under this Labour administration.
Well, we've not seen much of anything under this Labour administration. You've got blunder after blunder. But let's have a look at what Steve Reed had to say to us yesterday.
Our water system is completely broken. You only have to look at the state of sewage at record levels in our rivers, lakes and seas up and down the country. So we've already taken steps to start fixing that. We're resetting the system by giving the regulator the power they need to ban those undeserved multi-million-pound bonuses that the water bosses were paying themselves, and increasing penalties, including jail sentences for certain types of offending.
So he wants to lock people up now for offending in the area of pollution. Is that a sensible way to go?
Well, firstly, on the banning of water company bosses' bonuses, that was a commitment that was made back in 2023, building on legislation in the Environment Act that we as Conservatives brought through. In regards to jail sentences, they simply just, I don't believe, will happen, because what it refers to is if a CEO or a board member purposely obstructs an investigation that is taking place. So we've seen a lead campaigner on this issue today, Fergal Sharkey, calling on for Steve Reed's resignation. Now, this is an individual that gave us as Conservatives a huge amount of a tough time, quite rightly potentially, but he is also now calling for Steve Reed to lose his job because he doesn't feel that this government has got the teeth to be able to deal with this issue. So Steve Reed may talk hard on this issue, but crikey, the lack of detail and the lack of action in the last 12 months is just there for us all to see. All they are simply doing on this issue is rebranding and re-announcing Conservative commitments and action that was already put in place in 2023.
Robbie Moore, MP, Shadow Minister for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. It is just a mess, isn't it? The water company and the whole state. It's kind of endemic and sort of emblematic, if you like, of the state of Britain. Can't even make the water fall from the sky, put it into a tank of some kind, let it run through your house, let it run through your taps, let it take it away, dispose of it, clean it, you know, make it run through again, recycle it. How hard can it be? You know, I just don't understand it. Let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. It feels as though it's just a signal yet again of this failed nation. I mean, you spend plenty of time, Isabel, in a place that's very hot, where they don't seem to run out of water, where they don't seem to have any worries about hosepipe bans. And yet here we are with another hosepipe ban announced, this time for the Isle of Wight, a place you know well. What's going on?
Can't wait. I'm heading to the Isle of Wight on Friday. And, I mean, here's the irony with the Isle of Wight. I've written before in the newspapers about the sewage spill problems on the Isle of Wight's beautiful beaches. I'm lucky enough to have an apartment right near one of the nicest beaches, and often you can't actually safely swim there because there's been a sewage spillage. And why do those sewage spillages happen? Because of too much rain. So, I mean, you can't have it always, can you?
No.
We've too much rain, so we've got sewage spillages. Oh, but we've not got enough rain, so we're going to introduce a temporary hosepipe ban. The whole thing is absolutely absurd, isn't it? And we could have also, it's a point that the shadow minister there didn't raise, is the extent to which these critical national infrastructure companies, these are critical utilities, have been allowed to be sold off. I mean, Southern Water, which is a terrible offender when it comes to the sewage spillages, and that's the operator for the Isle of Wight, has a heavy stakeholder living all the way over in China. I mean, it was semi-sold off basically to a Chinese investor. You know, what could possibly go wrong?
I know, absolutely incredible. And I don't think there's one water company in the UK which is actually British owned, as far as I'm aware. They seem to have a slightly better version of water management in Scotland, where it's all charged through your council tax, and it seems to be run slightly better. I know that Reform have talked about nationalising bits of it and not nationalising other bits of it as well, but I just find it astonishing that, as I say repeatedly until I'm blue in the face, you know, the stuff falls free from the sky, we are surrounded by it, and yet nobody can show me how to make money out of actually selling it to people, even when you're a monopoly.
Yeah, it really is a complete shambles, and I think people are so bored of hearing about all the leaks, the sewage spills, and the inevitable hosepipe ban when the weather's a little bit warm in the summer.
Right.
It's just kind of all really pretty predictable. You know, our weather patterns may be getting a little bit hotter, but it shouldn't be enough to cripple the whole system.
No.
And as you say, you know, you and I were talking probably this time last week when you said you turned on your tap and nothing came out. I don't know whether you ever got any explanation for that.
Yes,
or was it
there was a massive water leak. A sort of pipe broke somewhere around the back of Bermondsey, which shut down basically half of southeast London. And it was back by the time I got home. But meanwhile, if you've been trying to put kids out to school or something like that, you'd have had a nightmare, because, you know, I literally had to just come and work. But yeah, I mean, we've got a picture here, which I think we can show, which is sent in by Catherine in Yorkshire, where they've currently got a hosepipe ban. That's her street. She says it's been that particular fountain has been coming out of the road for several days and nobody's fixed it.
For goodness sake, I think we'll all be tempted to go there with our buckets and fill them up. And you know that the thought of a hosepipe ban just brings out the worst rebel in me. I just feel like I you know, just before the ban kicks in, I want to fill up every container I've got.
Yeah.
It just feels like we shouldn't be having to put up with this. But then there are so many other things we shouldn't be having to put up with. And I'm actually in a little bit more of a cheerful mood this morning because I am loving this idea of sending our worst criminals to El Salvador.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's a fantastic idea. You know, what we need is true deterrence in this country as you know, crime just does feel very out of control, doesn't it? And the thought of being deported to one of those absolute hellish prisons in El Salvador, you know what, maybe it might just make a difference.
I think it might. And also the same goes for migrants. You know, we talk about it all the time, and we will talk about it probably now because, we've got this situation going on which feels slightly totemic for me, this whole business in Epping Forest, you know. It's building itself up into what I think will be quite a flashpoint. I don't mean by that a violent flashpoint. I just think it will be the place where everybody said this was where the beginning of the kind of rebel, the people's revolution started. People were sick to death. Starmer has said nothing. Downing Street have said nothing. I don't think Yvette Cooper's said anything. You know, there's a sort of nightly and daily demo going on there now. Yeah. Police are getting geared up. They're putting crash helmets on. You know, you're going to get the Tommy Robinson Brigade down there pretty soon. It's all going to kick off.
Yeah, well, I don't want to see any violence, and no one does, but I admire the people who are coming out and taking a stand, because what on earth else can we do?
Yeah.
You know, you and I, we're journalists, we're reporters, we can make our frustration known over the airwaves, and politicians can do what they do and that they're elected to do, but ordinary people have very little outlet for their mounting exasperation and true feeling that this just is intolerable, to have these these unknown individuals imported in very large numbers and dumped into communities. And this isn't racism. It's not people imagining that those who are claiming asylum are not necessarily good people. The statistics and the records, the criminal justice records bear this out. There are very, very significant numbers of very serious crimes being committed by people who are coming in at UK taxpayer expense and being dumped into communities indefinitely. And those good people, they're not far-right thugs, and but just let's make that clear before Keir Starmer suggests anything. These are people that are worried very, very rationally for the safety and security of their communities, and in particular for women's safety. This is way, way, way out of control. And, you know, in many ways, I hope we see peaceful demonstrations in similar areas where people are at breaking point, because there has to be some kind of outlet for this. People, ordinary people, have to have some way of taking a peaceful stand and saying, we will not put up with this anymore. I'm going to be talking a lot more with Kevin O'Sullivan tonight about the migrant crisis. I had a small research team over in Calais and Gravelines last week, and we've got some revelations on how the whole industry of channel crossings is evolving. And I think people will be quite alarmed by what they hear.
I'm sure they will be. To say nothing of how alarmed we are, all because of what we found out last week about the secret plan to bring tens of thousands of Afghan people here to this country. We now know that not only did some of them bring, 5 or 6 children with them, some of them brought 20-something relatives with them. We had one case of 150 family members coming. You know, we're looking at possibly 150,000, maybe more, Afghans coming perfectly legally, most of whom, we are led to believe, probably did not actually fight with British forces. So, that almost dwarfs the number coming on the small boats, which is now reaching very close to 50,000 since Labour got in. But it's an extraordinary number, isn't it?
It really is. And I think we've got to go back to examining the type of people that are coming in. Where did this all start? It all started with the rightful desire by the generous British people and government to provide asylum for those do our bit, I suppose, across the world for those who genuinely are fleeing war and terror. It's simply not sustainable anymore to claim that the majority of people coming over on these boats, and indeed necessarily the majority of Afghans coming over, are fleeing war and terror. They are looking quite reasonably for a new life, and they are coming to Britain because we provide such a generous deal. And in my opinion, nobody should be brought over here. However much they help to the British forces, they should not be brought over here on the basis that they may never have to work. Working is optional. Come on in and we'll look after you for the rest of your life. That should not be a thing. Come over here temporarily while you find your feet and get safe, and then you have to work. And as for the people that are coming over claiming asylum, it's quite obvious that the majority of them are economic opportunists or worse. They are professional criminals. And that should really, really give pause for the whole scheme. I just don't know on what kind of economic planet it makes any sense to import all these ne'er-do-wells who are not going to contribute anything and in fact do the opposite, whilst British people are struggling.
Yeah, it is absolutely out of control. Ridiculous, absolutely mad. Isabel, great to talk to you. We look forward to seeing you on Kevin's show later on. Isabel Oakeshott Talks International editor. You won't want to miss that tonight on Kevin O'Sullivan's show, with much more detail of what's going on from the French side and how these people are getting here with such ease, because it really does seem to have become an awful lot easier as well, doesn't it? David in Essex says, what's happening with our water bills when there is a hosepipe ban? If they're not providing a full service, then surely there should be a bill reduction. I think I'm right in saying that when there is a reduction, they do, I think, take some money off, but I'll be guided on that by you. One from Hillary, who says, Mike, rate the migrant situation. To be honest, I'm even more worried about them being put in houses rather than hotels. We have 2 hotels worth of them that have suddenly disappeared into local HMOs. That's those multiple occupancy buildings. Regarding the hosepipe ban, says Graham in Enniskillen, an Essex resident, ex-Essex resident, he says, I once had someone from Essex and Suffolk Water turn up at my door with loads of ideas to save water. I gave him an idea too. Fixed the bloody leaks and slammed the door in his face. Felt so good to do that, I almost called him back so I could do it again. I know, it is great, isn't it? When you have to be told by water companies who can't actually manage to get water from point A to point B without leaking half of it into the ground, how you should only be having 1 shower a week. Doesn't really make much sense to me. It's 9:24. Let's get a voice note from David.
Hi, Mike. Great show. David in the Cotswolds. Labour saving a third on migrant hotel bills. They just don't get it. That's like being ill, on treatment, going to the doctor changes your treatment for a cheaper drug and says, well, we've not cured you, you're still ill, but guess what? It's a third cheaper. They just don't understand. The cure is get rid of the migrants and stop any more coming. Simple.
It is simple. It's that simple. So easy to say. Coming up, we're going to find out what's been going on over in Israel, and also we're going to talk about this Palestinian flag waver at the Royal Opera House, because it turns out he went to a £48,000 private school. Of course he did. This is Talk.
When asked, do you think Britain is becoming a lawless country, 49% of people said yes. What would you say to them, Steve Reid?
Yeah, well, we can fix this. You know, whenever there is a problem that is made by governments, governments can fix it. The previous government didn't have enough police on the streets. We're putting 13,000 officers back on the streets. The previous government ran out of prison places, so we're now embarking on the biggest building of prisons since the Victorian era.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 27 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock when it is time for Julie Hartley-Brewer. C2C is the award-winning train operator running services between Fenchurch Street and Shoebury Nest, serving 26 stations in East London and South Essex. And it has, of course, just been taken over by the government. They were crowing about it at the weekend. But apparently, following a broken-down train earlier today at Upminster, train services running to and from this station are returning to normal, but some services are still delayed. That's sort of, you know, just one of the first days of the new government ownership of the train servants. Very, very good. Well done. Joanna from Salisbury says, Mike, a water hosepipe ban. Has nobody heard the weather forecast? Rain is expected, along with flash floods. So you can't use your water taps, though, whatever you do. More shifting of the deck chairs, says Alison in Glasgow. How many of the workers at Ofwat will be employed at the new shiny Quango? Well, you may well ask. Let's talk now, though, to Elon Levy, former Israeli government spokesperson and host of Israel State of a Nation podcast. Elon, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Good to talk to you. A couple of things to mention. I suppose the idiot from the Royal Opera House should get one first. He decides to unfurl a Palestinian flag. It turns out that he calls himself a queer dance artist. He went to £48,000 a year private school. And a lot of people actually are pretty upset by it because, one, it's entirely inappropriate for something like that to be done in that place. But also, you know, what has it got to do with opera?
Yeah, well, he got what he wanted, which is that we're talking about him, right? So while we're talking about him, let's talk about what that flag represents. That's the flag of the side that started this horrible war in the Middle East.
Yeah.
That's the flag of the side that is waging this war from behind and underneath civilian buildings, and the flag of the side that is still refusing to end this war by releasing the hostages and laying down its arms. If you really wanted to express sympathy with the people who are suffering with the war, you could start with wearing a little yellow ribbon like this to remember the 50 hostages who are still trapped in the dungeons of Gaza. Instead, this so-called queer artist is expressing support with the side that definitely isn't going to allow any queer dance parties in Gaza anytime soon, is it?
No, they're not. And they're not that keen on opera, from what I understand, in Gaza either. So I don't suppose there's going to be another touring company going out there either.
Well, the opera ends when the fat lady sings, and this war ends when all the hostages are home and Hamas lays down its arms.
You're quite right. More than 100 protesters were arrested across the UK on Saturday as well. I don't quite understand how somehow the government has prescribed the Palestine Action Group as a terrorist organisation, and yet people are still going out and demonstrating on behalf of Palestine Action.
And it's for the UK now to show whether it's a country of laws and is going to enforce those laws. If something is a prescribed terrorist organisation, you cannot take to the streets supporting it. That is a challenge to the basic rule of law in the UK. You know, for me, one of the most troubling things in this war has been to see how the conflict has infected British politics and imported political violence and opposition to the rule of law inside the UK. And I remember right at the beginning banging on about how these were hate marches. They weren't marching for peace, they were marching for hate, for conquest against Israel, calling on people to understand what these marches are and get a grip on them before they get out of control. And now we have hundreds of arrests because people are marching in support of a prescribed terrorist organization. We see the consequences of not understanding what these marches were when they started in solidarity with the October 7th massacre immediately after the massacre.
Right, and the problem is as well, they're chanting things which are clearly incendiary. They're chanting things which are offensive. I mean, I'm very much a believer in free speech, but if people are walking around saying "F your Jewish state" and you know, really intimidating Jewish people in a city like London or Manchester, then surely there must be rules and laws against that.
Absolutely, these are hate marches, and I remember this right from the beginning, where they were chanting "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Many people thought it was just a catchy slogan.
Right.
No, that means no more Israel. I'm in Tel Aviv. What is meant to happen to Tel Aviv if this becomes, you know, an Islamist country? It's not going to be a free country. It's going to be another failed state in the Middle East. This is a march that is calling for hatred and for violence and in support of terrorists, not just Palestine Action, but Hamas as well. So, you know, free speech is important, and the UK is going to have to tread that very careful line, respecting people's right to free speech. Right. But we have a problem here of a hateful movement that is spinning out of control. People now defying the police, defying the law, openly supporting a terrorist organization that was proscribed for vandalizing British military aircraft, right? For taking direct action against the British military and undermining Britain's national security. We saw that was the result of turning a blind eye to these protests in previous months, and I hope the UK takes this seriously now, or who knows how much more they could radicalise.
Well, right. They don't seem too worried about what's happening in Syria, though, do they?
No, and that's really horrifying. The only people who seem to care about the slaughter of Druze civilians in Syria is the Israelis.
Yeah.
Israeli civilians are horrified to watch images of really October 7th-like atrocities being perpetrated against innocent Druze people by Syrian regime forces. And the West, I think, has decided to turn a blind eye to that because, you know, as they say, no Jews, no news. It's not interesting. It's far away over there. If you can't blame the Jews for it, then it's not interesting. But everyone needs to pay attention to this evolving humanitarian catastrophe in Syria, where Islamist forces, the regime, together with Bedouin tribes, are massacring innocent Druze people who are begging for help, and the world should listen to them.
Yeah, and these are the people David Lammy just gave 91 million quid to, aren't they?
You know, I think the UK, the US, they have their interests, whether it's trying to get Syrian refugees to return home or whatever. They're willing to turn a blind eye to the fact that Syria is now run by a former Al-Qaeda militant. Who is Jalani? He was the head of HTS, the Al-Qaeda offshoot, until he captured Damascus, trimmed his beard, and started wearing a suit. And Israelis and the Druze in Syria are skeptical and suspicious of this man and saying, the leopard hasn't changed his spots. This is still a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is still a jihadist, and it's too early to celebrate and think that he's some sort of president of an inclusive democratic Syria just because he's trimmed his beard a little bit. We need to be more cautious, and the violence against the Druze in Syria should remind us that we're still dealing with a very dangerous regime.
Yeah. Very much so. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Elon Levy there, former Israeli government spokesperson and host of Israel State of a Nation podcast. Let's get a voice note from Rachel on the Farage prison plan.
Morning, Mike. Great show as always. This is Rach. So we're talking about Nigel Farage and him wanting to send off his 10,000 of the worst criminals to El Salvador. Yep, fully love the concept and the idea of this. But one thing we've got to remember, mate, is there's more than 10,000 of the criminals in the country. We're being absolutely gaslit. There's tens of thousands of them. Every stretch of this country has them. But we're only going to send the worst of them away. It's all wordplay. It's all wordplay. Fortunately, don't believe it. Don't trust it. Sorry, Nige, mate, but no, I don't trust you. If it's not all of them, then you're not getting me vote. Great show, as always. Chat to you again soon. Bye.
Rachel, thank you very much indeed. This from Maggie in Cheshire. On the subject of sending prisoners to a foreign country, I'm sure human rights lawyers would fight this, as I have a feeling that prisoners have a right to family visits. We would end up funding plane tickets and hotels in these foreign parts. I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, if you are related to somebody who's committed some horrific sex crime and they get sent thousands and thousands of miles away, are you really going to go and visit them? I don't think so. Scott in Dorset says, dealing with today's migrant of the day is easy. Tell him to pick one of the 3 countries he alleges he's from and pop him on a plane there. If he can't make his mind up, then pull it out of a hat and he takes pot luck. Yeah, well, that could work. And on the doctors' front, says Matthew in Cheltenham, I wish everyone would stop calling these doctors junior doctors. They are trainee doctors. When I trained to be an airline pilot, I was not called a pilot until I was qualified to fly passengers. I was a trainee pilot, so let's call them what they are, trainees. And trainees do not and should not get paid the same as qualified doctors. Well, I think the problem is there is a bit of a crossover, because depending on what point you decide to specialise, in what you decide to specialise, you are still a junior doctor, technically speaking, even though it may well be that you're doing actual, what you might call, qualified doctor's work. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. That's why I think they want to call themselves residents now, resident doctors, because it sounds better, doesn't it? 0344 499 1000. Rupert Bell coming next. Apparently there's a big row going on at Highgrove between King Charles and the gardeners. We'll tell you all about it coming next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:38. Goodness gracious. We'll be out of here in about 20 minutes' time. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be coming in at 10 o'clock just before that. Oh, sorry, I'm told Alex is in for Julie Hartley-Brewer. My apologies. Pete the Mole says, water companies soon it will be cleaner to drink out of a puddle with the way it's all going. I think I've done that one. Couldn't agree more. How dare they go on holiday? This place is out of control, says Michael. Sorry, good morning. I'm just absolutely fuming. Yeah, they're all off on the, Tuesday, I think is the last day of Parliament, last session. Keir Starmer's going to be quizzed later on this afternoon by all sorts of people, heads of committees, select committees. I think it's called the Liaison Committee he's going to be in front of. And he's going to be there for probably a couple of good hours. So he's not going to enjoy that, is he? He's not going to like the end of term report in The Sun either, which gives him 5 out of 10 and says must try harder. Let's talk to Rupert Bell, who literally couldn't try any harder if he tried. Rupert, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you, Rupert. It's a big story about King Charles today in the Times that we saw at the weekend. Memos fired off by the monarch to correct grammar and demand single flowers be moved, are wrecking morale among staff who are paid as little as minimum wage down at Highgrove. What's going on?
Well, it seems like gardeners have been revolting, if you read, looking through the lines of the article, because Highgrove is his home, has lived there for a long time, and he's passionate from the King's perspective. The gardens is something that he has brought on and developed over the years to be quite a spectacular one. But it appears that, it's not saying it's recently, but sort of in 2022, 2023, there was trouble with the staff saying they're not being paid properly. The turnover has been high of staff. There's been investigations that potentially people's mental health has been affected. So it's all, look, I don't know the exact details, but obviously this investigation has found that not everybody's been happy working for the King in his garden. But in the defence, they say we pay above the minimum wage. We have been consulting. Our turnover isn't as any more than anywhere else. It is an industry that does see people move very often between places of work if you're a gardener. So it's difficult to know exactly what is going on. There's obviously going to be two sides of the coin to this story, but obviously it's uncomfortable reading for the king to find that when he prides himself on being so good with his staff, that some aren't as happy as we perhaps thought they should be.
No. Well, it says that he's lost 11 of 12 gardening staff since 2022, including 2 head gardeners who quit within a year.
Well, that's not a good look. I mean, gardeners do move, as I say, regularly, but if he's putting unnecessary demands on them, shortage of staff, I think the king has acknowledged that there's an awful lot of work to be done there, and perhaps they haven't had as many people working there to make it via putting people under too much pressure with their workload. He's even asked for sort of volunteers who might want to come along and help out from the local area. So to ease the burden on as part of the King's Foundation, which this is, because the place gets around 40,000 visitors a year. So it is an attraction in the area just outside Tetbury in Gloucestershire. So obviously it's something that I'm sure the King will be looking at to make sure that this sort of story doesn't come out again.
And how often does he get down there, would you say? Because he's pretty busy these days elsewhere, isn't he?
Probably less than he would like, but obviously you talk about MPs going on holiday. He will be beginning his summer. I think he's not going to see President Trump this weekend when he goes to Scotland for a golfing trip, but the King will see him in September, but he will begin his holiday in Scotland. But he does try to get to Highgrove as often as is practical, because it is a place for him that he is very happy there, particularly in the garden, although the headlines surrounding the garden over the weekend were not quite what he wanted.
Yeah, he might not be quite so keen to hang about in the garden. There's one guy apparently, but the monarch said of one worker, "Do not put that man in front of me again," supposedly.
Well, we know that the king can have sometimes a little bit of a short temper. I mean, obviously during the period during the funeral time after the Queen died, the famous pen incident.
Yes,
he sometimes does want everything done very correctly. So, and he's known, but that's something that the Queen does her level best to try and eradicate from him, because it sometimes does get him in a little bit of hot water. So we don't know exactly the terms of that conversation, but maybe there was a moment of someone that didn't quite do the job as he would like, and he maybe was a little short with them. But I obviously don't know absolutely 100%.
No, of course. And they're now offering, the Royal Charity which runs the gardens have been told to offer mental health support after a formal investigation. So there's been a formal investigation by somebody. I don't know by whom.
Well, I think they brought in some people to do it. So and an independent
Garden Gate, you could call this, couldn't you?
Well, I suppose you could. There's a lot of gates going on at the moment, aren't there? So, but this is the King's Gate with his garden. So, and hopefully it will be resolved, because it is a spectacular garden. But obviously, it requires an awful lot of maintenance to ensure that it does look as good as not only the King would like, but the people who may have an opportunity to see it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Absolutely right. Well, listen, good to talk to you. I just want to mention, only because we both knew him, you knew him better than anybody else, Bob Bubka, the fantastic American broadcaster who used to do the Open with you. You were just up in Portrush in Northern Ireland there, a place that he loved well. And just wanted to, just mention and pass my condolences to his family.
Well, yeah, very sad news. He was 83, but I had the privilege of working with him for over 25 years, and he was a larger-than-life character with the most fantastic voice, which was hypnotic to listen to.
Yeah.
I'll miss hearing that voice, but I'll also miss him, because he was a great company to be around. He was a force of nature.
Yes.
Who left his mark, anyone who came within his radar, and we will all miss him, particularly on our as part of our talkSPORT golf coverage.
Yeah.
As you say, I've been at the Open, but he would have loved watching Scotty Scheffler do what he did around Royal Portrush over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well said, Rupert. Thank you very much indeed. Rupert Bell, Talks Royal correspondent, also talkSPORT's golf correspondent as well, and he was there at Portrush, a very sacred place to Bob Bubka, who was a wonderful man who did an awful lot of work for them. We've got more to come. It's coming up to 9:45. This from Dave, who says there are desalination plants on every cruise ship. The QE2 had the blue chemical barrels all over the place during the Falklands War. And Mick in Harris says the same thing. Cruise ships have onboard desalination plants, so it can't be that difficult. Well, you would think it could be done, wouldn't you? When you've got somewhere like the Isle of Wight, which is literally surrounded by salt water. What on earth could be stopping you? One story we only touched upon in the first hour when Emma Wolf was here is the pouring of tea. Apparently Gen Z are not that keen on kettles, so they prefer to put it in the microwave. Peter in Suffolk says, I went to the Tea Museum in London and they say that milk was introduced to tea when bone china cups were introduced. It went in first to stop the boiling water from cracking the cups. Well, there you are. You learn something every day. 9:46.
When asked, do you think Britain is becoming a lawless country, 49% of people said yes. What would you say to them, Steve Reid?
Yeah, well, we can fix this. You know, whenever there is a problem that is made by governments, governments can fix it. The previous government didn't have enough police on the streets. We're putting 13,000 officers back on the streets. The previous government ran out of prison places. So we're now embarking on the biggest building of prisons since the Victorian era.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:49. Alex Phillips coming up next. She's in for Julie Hartley-Brewer this morning. We've got lots of you to talk to. Going to take some calls right now. Just do a couple of quick messages. Kevin says this. The government is moving some people out of London hotels. I love Bridgewater in Somerset. We have about 4 hotels full of migrants, and we now learn that the London Council has purchased 350 houses on a new housing estate being built in the town to house even more of them. For God's sake, send them back to France. 350 houses. Where are they getting the money for that? Is this all part of the old Angela Rayner scheme, I wonder? Morning, Mike, says Paul. When a doctor starts work, they may have the qualification but no experience. When you start a trade, you have no experience and you start at the bottom. Is this just young people wanting everything straight away? Thank you. Well, I think that's part of it. You know, they obviously do quite well. I mean, how many poor doctors do you know? I mean, you know, I think most doctors, you would say, have a reasonably comfortable income. Zach from Brighton says, Mike, I just had a great thought. If the grid fails, then there would be no e-bikes on the road. Great news in my books. And maybe no electric vehicles at all. Let's talk to Babs, who's in Norfolk. Wants to talk about migrants. Hi, Babs.
Hi, good show.
Thank you very much. What can I do for you, Babs?
Well, we were just talking about the asylum
I'm getting the feedback here.
Are you? Okay. I can hear you okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. Right. We have, at the moment, a hotel in this town which houses the women and children, and they class it as family.
Okay.
They are now going to take those out today, move them out, and we are going to have single men put in there this afternoon.
Right.
And consequently, a lot of people are up in arms. But the main thing is the council knew nothing about it until Wednesday.
Right.
And it is now happening today. So consequently, we are going to have problems. The police are not happy, etc., etc. But definitely the council...
And whereabouts are you, Babs? In Norfolk?
We're in South Norfolk, and that's this.
This, okay. And that's where the hotel is?
Yeah,
right.
Park Hotel.
Right. Yeah. I know, it's just shocking, isn't it? So, I mean, the local council will say, what, it's down to the Home Office, presumably?
Yes, that's what it's got, yeah. I did give it all the information to your young man, and he has looked at the situation, and he said, well, this is what's happening in Essex, back in Essex.
Yeah, it would seem so. Well, thanks for letting us know, Babs. You see, this will be happening all over the place. That's in Norfolk. Miranda's in Cumbria. Hello, Miranda.
Hello.
Hello, what can I do for you?
When you were talking about concern for the Afghan migrants who were coming across and handing them cards, basically, and do you want to sue the government? Now, I wondered where they were, if there are any victims of crime, you know, the perpetrators being some of these young men in hotels. Who do we sue? There are no bearings to any of the victims in saying, would you like to sue the government because they're accountable for this, either the Conservatives or the Labour Party.
Right.
There doesn't seem to be any concern about any of the victims in any of this.
No, I know. It's just a massive, great big gravy train for lawyers, for, you know, translators, for immigration advisors, for charities, you know, everybody but basically the British people is getting a piece of this, you know?
No, it's sanity. In regard to the translators, I know when I worked in the hospital, and this was at least 10 years ago, the translators were on £90 an hour.
Right. An hour? Crikey.
Yes.
That's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely, utterly amazing. Ridiculous.
It really is. And but you just become flabbergasted by it, and no words really are there.
No, it's shocking. It really is. But I think people have got to the point now where they want to say something about it because enough is enough. Miranda, thank you. Claudio is in Italy. Claudio.
And a very good morning, Mike.
Good morning to you, sir. What can I do for you?
The migration issue.
Yeah.
Let's make the assumption that the government clearly wants more migrants to increase the population. So why don't they decide to open up work visas to anyone who lives in other Commonwealth countries?
Yeah.
Australia, New Zealand, Canada. That way we all speak the same language, we all have the same ethics and views on lifestyles.
Yeah.
And then it can be a two-way street. Those who choose to go to those, you know, leave UK to go to the other countries can do so.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the moment, if you're an Australian and you want to come here, you have to have a job offered to you, or how does it work?
That's the damn problem. That's the problem. Not only do I have to have a job offered, the job offered can only be offered by a company that's registered with the Home Office to issue work right visas.
Right.
So it can't just be any company.
Right.
If those companies aren't on the list, they can't do it.
They can't do it.
And how many local companies in UK are going to be bothered offering me a job on the proviso that I might get the visa?
Right.
I may not.
And it's an expensive process, right?
And it's an expensive process when they've got potentially 5 or 6 other candidates that they could choose from that are local.
Yeah. I know. It's completely bonkers. It's completely mad.
I'm in IT and customer service, so I'm looking for remote work. And the majority of, and remote by definition could mean anywhere in the world, but the majority of UK employers, when they say remote, they mean remote locally as in anywhere in UK, but not from overseas.
Right. Yeah,
So
I know.
if they open that up, then that makes. I'm a pet sitter, so I pet sit around UK 6 months of every year, and but I can't earn an income in UK because even though I'm an Australian citizen, I can't. No one will employ me because I don't have the working right visa.
Right. I know. It's ridiculous. It's totally mad. Claudio, good to talk to you, but at least you're in Italy, or at least hopefully it's a bit better than it is here in terms of, the surroundings. Jackie is in North Yorkshire. Hi, Jackie.
Morning, Mike. There may be a way to find out how individually genuine these Afghan migrants are.
Okay.
If you put each one in a room with perhaps 2 or more English soldiers and a video recording machine, and ask them in plain English to say in what way they helped the British.
Yeah.
What did they do? Where did they do it? When did they do it? Recording their replies, of course.
Yes.
Those who cannot answer in English may be judged not to have risked their lives as translators for the benefit of British soldiers.
Yeah. It's definitely doable, isn't it?
Just possibly. Well, I'm not sure. But this possibly might reduce the numbers of those who would like to live out their lives at the expense of British people who work and pay tax.
Yes. Well, this is the problem. It's an open-ended offer, isn't it? So they're never going to have to earn any money. They're never going to have to pay for the housing they've been given. And they can apparently bring as many as 150 relatives with them.
Exactly.
It's insane.
If they can't speak English, I doubt they've been English translators.
Yes.
Translators to English.
Yes. No, I think it's a very good idea. Problem is, of course, they'll say we haven't got the resources to do everybody, but they should. Jackie, very good idea. Very, very interesting thoughts today from all of you. Herbie is in Harrow. Hello, Herbie.
Yes, good morning, Mike.
Morning, sir.
Mike, listen, the water companies, the police have lost control of everything. They've got no idea what to do. Why did they fill up the reservoirs, which was much needed for housing development? Short-sightedness, police stations closing. Where do you go to report if you're not on the internet or the internet goes down? You don't have a chance. It's all very well for the MPs to have their luxuries, their subsidised meals and things like that. The police have to go to Burger King or McDonald's and things like that to get changed. How stupid is this nation becoming?
I know. It really is hopeless, isn't it? We've reached sort of peak hopelessness. Common sense has disappeared out the window. Money's being thrown at everything like it's going out of fashion. And we're getting the thick end of a tax increase.
Exactly. Well, Mike, nobody's accountable. It's so easy to say sorry. It is so easy to say sorry. Please, I made a mistake. Yes, we know. What are you going to do to put it right? I don't know. I haven't got a clue.
Yeah, right. I know, shocking, absolutely shocking. Herbie, thanks very much indeed. One from Nigel who says, Mike, thanks for putting Ed Miliband on earlier. Perfect timing to make a brew. If you put him on again, I'll make another. He's boring and he's lying about energy bills. Yeah, but now he's lying to the kids. He's lying to children, for heaven's sake. Alex Phillips is here. Very good morning to you.
Lying to children?
Lying to children. He's
With
telling
that
them.
creepy, congested
He's telling them.
voice.
Yeah, he's telling them their energy bills are going to go down.
He is lying to children then,
So
isn't
I'm
he?
afraid.